call. Board Member Eliano is coming shortly. Board Member Ellis.
Present.
Board Member Insua.
Here.
Board Member Simonian.
Present.
Chairman Yu.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on May 7th, 2009. Oral communications. I don't have any oral communication cards. Chairman Yu? Any cards for oral communication? Okay, that brings us to the review calendar. Staff's announcement. We do have one announcement regarding today's agenda, which would be that the second case on tonight's agenda for 3544 Roselawn Avenue, and that would be case number 1-PDR 2008-052A, is being continued to June the 11th. So all those interested party for 3544 Roselawn Avenue, that this case matter will be continued to a date certain, which would be June the 11th. That said, I go directly, turn the meeting over to Chairman Yu.
Thank you. Welcome to DRB 1, Thursday, May 14th, 2009. You have to bear with us. It's a little warm in here. We'll try to get through these as quick as we can with all the right attention to each project. The first one is 1-PDR 2008-088-A, 460 West California Avenue. And Heather, you ready?
Thank you, Chairman Yu, and good evening, board members. The first project for your consideration tonight is unique in that it was approved. It received design review approval on August 5th, 2004. Building permits were issued for this project on May 11, 2005, and construction began, as you can tell, as evidenced by the photographs, and later stalled, which caused the building permits to expire, which took place on September 11, 2008. The expiration of the building permit also meant that the design review approval expired as well, which is why the project is before you again. This is considered a new case for that purpose. And it will also be subject to all current zoning code and building code requirements. This project is before you as a final review. As stated by Chairman Yu, this project is located at 460 West California Avenue, and it is zoned R1650. This area contains a mix of single-family residences as well as multi-family buildings. The existing multi-family structures are larger and contain more units than the proposed project. The project involves the construction of a new two-story, four-unit townhouse with a semi-subterranean parking garage for 11 spaces. The lot is 6,974 square feet. The site planning, mass scale, and design of the project remain the same as the project approved in August of 2004. Common open spaces will be provided at the rear and side of the property. I've pinned up the current project to the left of the board, as well as the elevation of the project that was approved by the board in August of 2004. The project was not originally required to provide an accessible path of travel for people with disabilities when it was issued building permits back in May 11 of 2005. This requirement became effective on July 1st, 2005, and this is a building and safety requirement. The project is essentially the same, as you can tell, see by the elevations drawing. The biggest difference is the inclusion of the handicap lift, which meets the requirement for an accessible path of travel per building and safety. The handicap lift will be located in the minimum front yard setback, which violates the zoning code. However, the applicant has applied for a setback variance and was approved by the zone administrator on April 2nd, 2009. As it stands, the semi-subterranean garage is in place, the walls are up, and the roof is on. If this was a new project, staff approach in addressing the site planning, mass scale, and design of the building would be more comprehensive. Since this is a new project, yet it is in mid-construction, staff focus mainly on how the project fit within the context of the neighborhood, and it presents some challenges in terms of the level of review staff should be should provide on this particular project. If one were to compare this project with the existing neighborhood, within the existing neighborhood, the proposed project relates better to the street than the existing multifamily buildings. In terms of mass and scale, the proposal is much smaller and less massive than existing multifamily buildings, as well as an improved site planning, which allows for added amenities not found in the older developments in this neighborhood. Overall, the project is consistent and complements the existing mix of architectural styles in this neighborhood. As reflected in the staff report, the board has discretion in imposing conditions as you see appropriate to further improve the project. And staff has included some suggested conditions which are reflected in the staff reports. If you like, I can go over these suggested conditions. Otherwise, that concludes my presentation. If I may just walk you through the drawing. The fenestration pattern and the color scheme remains the same. This is the change right here in this area. The handicap lift will project into the front yard setback. However, it will be treated to match the existing style of the building with the same architectural detail. On this drawing here, you can see where that was not the case when it was approved. So the roof plan essentially extends forward to cover the handicap lift. However, it blends in with the style of the roof. Any question, I am available to answer them.
Is there a landscape plan?
Yeah.
Landscape plan remains the same. It was included in your packet as a...
It was?
Actually, it wasn't.
I didn't see it, that's why I asked.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry. Then. The landscape
see it.
plans remains the same. This is...
We figured you abstained because original vote you abstained.
original one.
You're in. Okay.
And are these plants on, in potted plants, or are they on the deck?
On the deck.
So they're in potted, in pots?
Well, the deck would be designed at a sufficient depth to accommodate.
Impossible. They
I mean,
already-
according
it's
to-
already poured. It's poured.
It's
Yeah.
poured, so
So
we're on the road.
you'll never get that landscape plan with that's not going to work.
Planners, yeah.
Yeah, they're above grade, they're above deck planners.
Well,
Maybe we should let the applicant
will
address
be
it.
able to address that further.
Mr. Dong, I have one other question, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
In the variance, it talks about sorry. Wait till you're ready. In the variance, it talks about a backup generator for the lift. Do you know what their plans are to install that? I didn't see it. I looked on the plans, I didn't see it. I just wondered if you happen to know.
No,
We'll bring that up then.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for staff?
Just to also comment on the landscape plans that was brought up by Board Member Insua. The landscape plan was approved as presented before you now. So that's why the applicant began construction according to those plans.
Okay, we'll have to ask them because I don't think that they'll be able to achieve that landscape plan with what they've got.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Is the applicant the original applicant, or was
No,
this an abandoned construction project that was then sold and somebody else has bought it and is trying to complete it?
correct. For reason not known to staff, all the details, the applicant is brand new to the the applicant's the same, but the owner of the property is different.
The owners.
The owners,
owner is
the owners
different.
are different.
I see.
What's the name? And then I have one card that has no project address on. I don't know if that's for Harry. Are you for this project? Okay. Since you're the only card, why don't you go ahead and come up?
Good evening, everybody.
And if you can state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Harry Babakanyan. My address 211 East California Avenue, P12. It's in Glendale. I'm an applicant for this project. I did a design, so that was a long time ago, like 2004, and been approved. They start building the project. Now they have a semi-subterranean, the garage level is already done. It's approved by building department. Now, and afterwards, the owners, they went bankrupt or something. I don't know. They sell the project expired and stops. So we have to get new approval from design review board and get project going. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
I would ask that question that I brought up about the backup generator. Do you know where that's planned to go?
That's kind of building, during the building, like construction documents, I will provide that.
So at this point, there's been no thought to that yet? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not.
That's not, okay.
It's like small space, it's not a big
Right.
issue. I will provide that. That's a condition I have to provide.
The type of windows, do you know what the manufacturer of the windows are that you have here on the material?
Doesn't say there.
No, it doesn't, just says the color.
Manufacturing, that time they wasn't required. I didn't update the,
But do you know who the manufacturer is that you
it's
specify?
only Milgard, I think.
Do you know what Milgard, what style, what species, what series?
Actually, I have to refresh my, because it's a construction work.
Yeah, that wasn't,
Go ahead. Milgard, can you describe Milgard what? Can you describe how the window is
type of window.
fabricated?
It's
Well, is it going to be like this? It's in the middle. Will it look like that? It's a wood-clad aluminum-clad wood window, or aluminum-clad wood window. That'll be the type.
that will be the type.
Okay, with exterior divided mullions.
Yes.
Okay.
So and then on your window schedule where it says aluminum or vinyl, we could cross out vinyl, right?
Yeah.
Put aluminum.
Full aluminum. I leave an option. Sometimes they can get same kind of vinyl.
Options are good. We'll pick
They can
one.
use it.
Yeah, we'll pick one for you.
The mullions are divided, they're not snap-on, they're not the snap-on,
Well,
they're divided.
this one is dual glaze with what appears to be nice quality.
Divided.
Not true divided.
Yeah, there's no middle.
It looks like a good quality divided light.
Right.
Depth, it's got a good depth to it and stuff, which is nice. But still dual glaze window.
That's actually one of the comments that staff had made about the windows, so we might want to look over those as well.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant?
I got one more,
No,
sir.
go ahead.
I noticed in that Unit 1, you're making a change to make that also handicap accessible?
Yeah,
Is that?
it's required
It's
one unit.
one unit, at least
One
one, right?
kitchen, one bathroom has to be
Okay.
handicap accessible, so I revised that.
That one unit, okay, thank you.
I got a question. Go ahead. So on the landscape plan, rather, do you have a landscape plan?
It's
Or did we
it's
talk-
on the board over here.
Okay. So can you describe the landscape plan, how it's designed, how is it going to work? We've got a lot of trees and a lot of stuff here. How is that going to be
Like-
achieved?
We have somewhere in the section.
Here's a
We're
pointer.
gonna build like
Sir?
a little wall.
Here you go.
We're gonna build a little, this is gonna be like a fence wall, and this is another block wall.
Right, so above grade, and do you know,
Above grade.
and do you know how high that's going to be right there?
That's usually 24.
Okay, so let's say 24. I think that may be a problem, because I don't remember the exact code, but isn't there an item that if above-grade planters are above a certain height, it takes away with your usable space, and then you start affecting the common areas and items of that type? I remember that's always been a challenge with these apartments or condominium units that have a podium parking, that you start really eating up into your courtyards and stuff.
While we have the discussion, we'll double-check the code on that piece.
No, it's always been something that's been reoccurring. Okay. In other words, it can't exceed a certain height.
Yeah, it's a catch-22, because if it's not high enough, then you can't plant anything, and if
Right.
it's too...
Yes, there is a code.
Kind of little trees, not big. The big trees goes to the ground.
This is a 24-inch box.
Actually, that's
That's what you want, that's the front section.
Sure.
Tree is out.
has to be the same. Why don't you grab it? Oh, thank you. I need to look.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the only card that I have for that project. Is anyone else here for that project would like to speak? No? Okay. Then we'll close the session, and we'll start with you, Mr. Simone.
Thank you. This is a unique case. However, I have a feeling that there might be more cases like this coming up in our city and for sure in Southern California. There's a big number of abandoned construction projects due to the financial meltdown that are going to be resurfacing and in the coming months and so forth. I'm not sure how many there are in our city, but overall in the city of Los Angeles and Southern California, there's a lot. These are unique cases in that for whatever reason there was hardship and this project is somewhat built, it's been framed, and here it is sitting vacant. The longer it stays vacant, the more of a nuisance it is for a neighborhood. And so my first intuition was really to look at the overall massing and bulk of it, to see if the massing and bulk was done correctly, and if the past judgments that were made by this board, this very Design Review Board 1, really matched our current criteria and guidelines. And as far as I'm concerned, the massing and bulk of the building and the layout works. When I start looking at the details associated with the drawings, as far as the roof tile and as far as the railings and as far as the window types and the surface materials, it's somewhat obsolete. It's an older style, as you might say. A lot of buildings were designed just like this in the 80s, so it's got a more, how might you say, aged look to it, and it hasn't even been built yet. So when I visited the site, fortunately the windows were not installed, fortunately the roof was not installed, fortunately the railings were not put in, and so there is a very good opportunity here to be able to apply some contemporary feel to this building very easily. And so I could support the project with the following recommendations and conditions, I would say, is that there be some sort of combination of siding and smooth plaster for this exterior. And a lot of the comments I'm going to say are echoed by staff as well, so it's nothing new. The roof tile we could probably reconsider instead of the proposed, probably a roof tile maybe.
Is it already installed, though?
No.
No. I don't think so. It looks as though the building paper is on, but I
Yeah, I
didn't.
thought it was building paper.
Well, we could determine
We'll call you
that.
if you have a question.
As far as the railings, as what's indicated on the elevations are those typical vertical standard railings, and I think if we go with maybe more of a cable railing system or a horizontal system, something like that might help it. And the rafter tails are a little bit out of proportion, but those could easily be amended. You're showing really deep rafter tails, and they're so close together, but that's probably more of a graphic thing. And that dolphin blue color is in my opinion, the wrong shade. So again, the big pictures, as far as the bulk and mass of the building, I believe it works. It's there, and I believe the previous judgments that were done by this board are consistent with the way we judge today. However, it's just those materials, it's everything else that we could very easily apply to this building today that could make a big difference between something that looks somewhat dated to more of a contemporary look. And I agree with staff in that those the munds on the windows and the divides are just a little bit of an overkill. We could probably go with a more simpler, more contemporary feel to it. Would love to hear my colleagues' thoughts on this as well and see where we could end up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simone. Just because we'd like to hear from you, just because you were there for the original. Yeah, right. So we want to see.
Yeah, this is a long time ago.
Do you remember?
Don't you remember it?
Vaguely. Yeah, I can concur with your comments. The one thing that I have a question about, and I don't know if there's a good answer for, is the lift itself. When you're on the main level, you see the door actually from the street. And I wonder whether there are lifts that you can, like here, the basement, or the ground on the garage level, you enter this way, but then when you're up here, you enter that way. And I wonder if there's a way to not put the door there, but put it here. So you're actually entering from the side so that you don't see, because this door here is going to get beat up. It's not going to be one of those doors where
It's a
not a
maintenance
nice
door.
door. It's going to be probably a steel door, and it might be nice to put it around the corner so that this can be nice and clean. I don't know if I don't think code will allow, but I would even try to extend this roof a little bit. You got to be a certain distance from the property line. Because it'd be nice to make a feature out of this whole thing, rather than just that. Maybe some of this architecture can go here. This could be across. Maybe this could be a trellis of some sort. I think you can do a trellis within a setback. I'm not sure. I don't think you can. Right?
No, a trellis needs to be outside of setback.
Yeah, so you can't do much there, but you could probably. Okay, but my main thing is the door. I think if you can solve the door. Great.
Okay,
That's
thank
it.
you. Thank you. Mr. Ross.
I would concur with Mr. Simonian and Mr. Aliano. My concern just is that in a rush to finish the project, the lowest common denominator is not used, that the materials are of high quality, that I like the siding idea. I asked the question about the backup generator, and at some point it's going to be an issue, but it's the kinds of things that need to be thought about a little bit here. And then I think Mr. Insua has some interesting issues on the landscaping, but the bulk and size on that street, it fits in. I understand the owner's issue with he's 2/3 done, but I'm just concerned of a rush to judgment that it gets done for the lowest common denominator, not necessarily the best for the community. I could support it with the conditions, and I think some of the things that you guys have been going after. The door is an interesting thing. I didn't notice that, but I see where you're going from, Mr. Aliano, and yeah, it is, because it's not going to get used very much, and it's just going to be there. Right.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to, these are just things that have already been reviewed, but I think we need to make clear that it's going to be part of the project. The aluminum clad over wood windows and doors as submitted in the sample board, we need to make sure that that's crystal clear, that that's what they're going to use. We'll talk about the landscape plan in a second. I agree with the comment that we need a little bit more material diversity siding on some of those, not all the areas, but some little interesting areas would definitely add interest to the building. I would also suggest introducing 3 exterior colors, 2 or 3 exterior colors, fine panels that and you see a lot of contemporary apartments doing that. Doesn't have to be one monotone color. 2 or 3 exterior colors of the same palette range could be really interesting in this building. You see a lot of things going that way. Color. My wife's amazed how much color we can put into things. You can do a lot with a lot of. My wife's watching, so you can do a lot with color. Yeah. Making sure that the exterior wood trellis that you see on the drawing sheet A3 plus the exterior elevations are introduced into the balcony areas. I think that'll provide nice little shading areas that they don't forget that during the construction. So the exterior trellis on the roof plan, sheet A3, and the elevations, to make sure that that's incorporated. Colors I got. Mr. Sponian mentioned that may not be his favorite, but on sheet A4, they put in what looks like wood corbels, like a la arts and crafts kind of thing. If they're going to go that way, making sure that they put those things in. Mm-hmm. If you're not comfortable with those, I'm fine too, but if you're going to do it like on sheet A4. And I think that's it, except that landscape issue that I think is going to, I don't think it's going to work because I think it compromises the calculations. I don't know the exact thing, but I know over the years when there's an apartment like this and you have above podium landscape planters of a certain size, you start going against code. Did you ever find out what that is?
No, unfortunately, it's somewhere in here, but...
Okay, so we can wait for them while we talk about it. A lot of good points been made. I think you're right that unfortunately we are probably going to see a lot more projects like this coming to us in a state where it was a semi-abandoned and then sort of trying to put new life into it. I think the color is a little lacking. I think color can be utilized. It's a very cheap way of sort of getting depth into the project. Maybe introducing a second material. Really if they do it with color, I mean, they do a good job. Maybe we don't need that extra material, but I think it's something that needs to be studied. I really don't like that sort of access door for the lift that's facing the street. I think that's the perfect space where you would put your signage and your number, and it's sort of the entry piece to your project. And instead, you're going to have this sort of utility door sticking out in there. So I think we need to rethink that. Maybe put it on the other side where the staircase is.
Problem is you won't because you don't have, your swing, the door swing goes into your landing. You don't have the 54 inches from the stair here. So if the stairs haven't shifted, it's...
Yeah, they actually just have a landing there. So up there.
You see the
It's
clearance.
a 2-foot level difference too. But
Yeah, it looks like that's a problem.
see, the landscaping, I think that part of it we need to really look at because we can't set up a situation where, we see these pretty pictures of landscaping and then we give it no chance of actually growing and actually maturing and becoming something part of the project. I think most of the comments have been dealt with. I think window quality we have a good handle on. They submitted something that we're happy with. Colors we want to look at. I mean, besides that, I think you're right. The messing works. It's a little bulky, but I think it does. It's got enough undulation on the facade to make it work. Anyone open for making a motion?
That's a question. I mean, does that?
Before you do so, perhaps Rather can read back some of the conditions.
Okay.
I don't know if we can,
You found the answer to your question then.
the landscaping thing.
In regards to the landscape planner, that was definitely something that the design review boards were discussed, and especially at the time when multifamily projects were coming on board, such as in 2004, 2005. There was a zoning interpretation written by the zoning administrator. This was dated on January 25th, 2006, in which it specifies that any common outdoor space shall have a minimum level surface dimension of 10 feet and a minimum area of 200 feet. Some planners have interpreted to mean this: the planter areas that may be enclosed within raised curbs and are elevated over an area could be counted as common outdoor space, even though the area is not usable as a recreation area. Even if a planter area is level with the proposed common outdoor space, it may still not be usable as a function of true common area. On the other hand, some planners, it goes on to specify, and that was in regards to the comments that were made. Following this particular zoning interpretation, and again, this is dated 2006, which came after the original approval of this particular project back in 2004. Since this interpretation, the design review boards have been actually looking at with greater scrutiny the usability of that common outdoor space, the integration of landscaping at flat horizontal planes, and actually recessing the planter pockets and depressing the level of the garage and the slab frame. But this was only post-2006 zoning interpretation. And again, the project that you have before you was approved back in 2004.
I can appreciate the interpretation, but I know we were kicking it around all the way back from 2003, 2004.
Correct.
It was always something
You were.
that we were pushing it, we needed clarification. It may have been put in documentation at that date, but I remember all the way back in the 2000, 2003, we were, that's what I think generated that thing, that we were not approving things that.
Well, in either
Well, there
case,
was-
I think we're here reviewing it now, and so we go by today's standards. So,
Correct.
I guess I wasn't clear. There's no real dimensional number that was given. It's more of, it could go either way, but it's more of a judgment call to see how it works in the space. Is that?
And
I heard it is minimum 10 feet wide with a minimum square footage as
this
it grows.
is
of
the minimum,
200.
and this is specified in code. It has to be a minimum 10 feet wide and a minimum area of 200
200.
square feet. Now, within that, it's supposed to have, an integrated, whether it's seating or landscaping or some sort of usable, functional, common outdoor recreation area for all of the residents to
After you
use.
achieve that.
Rather, if we apply that to this project now, does it satisfy the requirements as it was just read?
Well, in terms of what Vilya just stated about the incorporation of seatings and seating areas and barbecue and fountain and make it more appealing, appealing enough where people actually want to congregate and socialize. That can be conditioned, and staff can look for that item during plan check, which the applicant is also aware of that requirement. However, in terms of the depth of the planter and how well it's integrated into the common open space, that's a different question altogether.
Well, I think the only part of these drawings that I see
looks like you do,
that
though.
indicates the open space is the top left one. It shows the private open space, but it doesn't show the common open space. So if the common open space is at the rear of the building and none of the common open space has the planters, then it's not an issue. So that's the way I'm seeing it. So I'd like to find out where the common open space is for the property. And if there's no planters there, then it's not an issue. So maybe we could get the architect to come up and show us where the common open space is.
They're on the plan here.
They're on the drawings here.
T1.
I do want to, at that time, and forgive me for interrupting, the planter can be incorporated within that planter area. It just, according to the administrative interpretation, it says areas composed mainly of planters will not meet this criteria.
If, for example, the rear common
So-
area here.
So it's up to us to decide if it's mainly.
The common area does not meet the requirements of minimum 10 feet. We're at about 8 feet here. Well, with the planters, it's 8 feet. So the above-grade planters at 24 inches doesn't allow that to work.
So the question is, if that planter goes away,
Well,
will he meet his landscape?
I think according to the interpretation, the planter can be included in the 10 feet.
If it doesn't take away the usable common area, which in this case it does because you have 24-inch high planters.
But from what she read, she's saying
I'm not
it can
sure
be
that's
part of
what-
that.
It can be a part of it. Planters can be a part of the common outdoor area provided, pardon, go ahead. You have a question.
No,
I can
I'm
see
just-
it. It's
just
coming.
Just listening, I'm just listening.
So if you'd like, I can make a comment.
But the problem, okay, now I'll jump in. The problem is that we have consistently said that planters that are 24 inches high do not allow that common area to be usable. It impedes the ability for that common area to be used. So if he has 24-inch high planters, that impedes the common area use. By putting the 24-inch high planters in that area, you have then encroachment of the minimum 10 feet, which is now down to 8 feet. So that also is another problem with the design. So the planters have to be lowered to about 6 inches, which was what we were doing on old projects of this time. Planters have to be about 6 inches so that you have that area to be usable, if you will, or not. And, we don't want it to look like a corridor. But then by lowering the planters to 6 inches and not deepening the podium, as you were saying before, then you don't have enough plant material to grow anything. So the combination of 6 inches plus the lowering of the podium in that area, which is what we've been doing during that period of time to satisfy both those issues.
But I think we also have to be careful and be fair to the applicant, because that's not something that's written down as law. It's almost open to interpretation, and it's sort of, as a board, maybe in the past, Board 1 might have sort of judged it in that fashion, but what if Board 2 does not judge it in that fashion, and it sort of becomes, not a consistent thing throughout what we're doing, and so I think we have to be careful. I think we can decide now how we're going to judge this, but I think we have to come to a consensus in that, and not just say that it has to be 24. If it is 24, then it doesn't meet the requirement for that. So I'd like to maybe hear from the rest of you guys to see how you feel about that requirement and how you would interpret that.
Yeah.
Because it does talk to a bigger issue, I guess.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
My concern is that we're in a drought situation, and we're telling everybody else that they need to do landscaping that has drought tolerance. I have an issue with landscape. I understand where you're going, and maybe there's I don't know what the solution is, but I'd hate to see landscape that can't grow or can't work be approved at a time when we're telling everybody else go for a low water flow type landscape, water use. So I don't know what the
Why
solution
couldn't
is.
it work? It could work on a 2-foot planter.
And that the trees and stuff will work in
Yeah,
the side.
that's code. In fact, if it's 24 inches, it's a legitimate planter, and in fact,
raise it.
yeah.
No, if you don't raise it. If you don't raise it, you cut into the...
Well, we can't cut into the concrete.
Yeah, right.
It's already
built.
poured, so
Yeah.
it's either 24 inches and it meets the requirement because we count the space of the planter, or we tell them that the planter is too high, they need to lower it to a number that I guess we can determine since it is open for interpretation, and then say that that meets the 10-foot area of open space. So,
If I may offer one more option.
sure.
I know that our code recommends that 24 inches for planter depth. One thing you might consider is if the planter were at 18 inches, the edge of the planter would act as a seat wall.
We can consider that as a seating. That's
See, I'm looking at the landscaping, and he's just over the required by 12 square feet approximately. Well, no, a little more. But
So counting what's on the plan.
Right,
at the plan.
right. So if that goes away, although,
What if the planters were here instead of there? Then you get that. What if the planters were right there?
have it go all the way across.
Well, remove these and put them here and there, and then see if you still need to...
Oh, by slipping them.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Right.
Because here you would have the 10 feet. And then you'd have a narrow opening with some other...
well. I mean, how do you guys feel if they lowered it to 18 inches? Would you consider that part of the open space, or do you feel like it has to be from the edge of the planter to?
My question, I think, is a very important one. I'd like to have the architect come up and point to us where the common open space is, because it's only 4 units, so it's not going to be a lot of common open space.
That's a good point.
And if it's just localized to the rear there, and we just have to move that little bit of a planter, then we could ask him, does he know of another area that he could relocate that landscaping planter to, make some of the other planters larger maybe? If it's possible, then it might be okay. So I'd like to ask him that question.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. Let's open it up. If you could come up and just point to your open space area and kind of walk us through the calculation and if it will impact if we do take away that planting area.
Okay, as you see in the site plan, see, this is the area.
That's the open space area.
Space area, and there's like, in the old time, they allow us to use this one, because each unit then is 200 square foot common open area, so the 400 and 200, 200, those are the common open areas.
So, but couldn't you put some of this landscaping here back in here?
Description with
the
the
unconsidered
unconsidered
common
common
open
open
area is
areas,
like
like
a
a
description,
description, it should have this and this and this.
What definition?
This is all 200.
But you did this question, the distance, which is 8 feet. And that's the 8 feet that you scaled? But if you get rid of these planters and put them here, you can add the distance. Then you need to 10 feet this way.
It's the garage ventilation.
Maybe some planting at the end.
This is garage ventilation.
Yeah.
Oh, in here?
Yeah, I just look at it. It's listed as garage ventilation, and that's got to be on the deck, or can it be on the side?
Okay.
Could you relocate that, or
would
make
you
them
put
less
that?
and put a fan in there?
That's right. Yeah, but that's right outside the front door. You bring in all that air. I would put those somewhere else.
Right. Are those the only ventilation that you have?
Yes, it's natural ventilation.
Do you have any on the other side or in the front?
Yeah. Oh, those are the ones on the...
That's kind
But
of
you're getting all this exhaust from the garage into the front entry of the units. Yeah, I think I would put it somewhere else. Maybe, what if you can't put them here, right? 'Cause it's not localized.
It's the deck is all the big...
There's no way to...
How close are you on your landscape requirement? Are you right on the number, the minimum?
That
You think so, or you know so?
I know so.
You know so, okay.
This This dimension in here, this is 10 feet, right? This is the common open space, and you're not counting this as common open space.
Holes there, right?
Yeah, there are holes, at least on the plan.
The whole thing is being counted.
Yeah, it's 11.6 to the wall. That thing looks like it's more than, maybe not.
So you could use 1'6" of it.
Yeah, which is what it looks like. That's what
Well,
he's
you
using.
can't, you need, I think, minimum width of
We
2.
need the 6 inch.
I'm not sure if that's where your storage is. Like that drainage storage, you'll get it in drainage. Do you have any other questions for the applicant?
Fill it and put it right in the
Very easily.
About this door in the front of
Yeah.
with the elevator. So we have no access to the garage from here. It's tight, very tight. So we are thinking to bring this door somewhere here or here. I tried that before. Doesn't
We
work.
can't put it in that landing.
Because let's say block here, they cannot go out from here. They require this door.
Is that a door that they use to actually get into the? Or is it a mechanical?
No, it's a door they have to get in. That's a required door by the building.
Yeah, it's the only way other than the elevator to get out of the
It's at
garage.
that level
up
then,
there,
okay.
right.
Then I would say,
Yeah.
can you use the same door that you're using on the side
one.
and center it?
Just an ask you a question. 'Cause the issue here is that, I can't read that. What is that?
It's the gas meters. It has to be high.
It's already there.
Yeah.
It's already installed.
They installed it, that's plumbing, everything. is-
All right. Because I was going to suggest, it doesn't matter whether you come down this way.
Or the other
Well, yeah,
way.
you could have come down this way and got yourself a landing there, right here. You
Yeah.
could have a landing, you can do that.
Right,
you know.
but
But,
it's
you
just
know,
showing two
it's
different
already
doors on the
plumbing.
entry to that.
This one's?
well,
That one
actually,
and that one.
these meters are down below, right?
Oh,
Yeah, you don't see those.
They're about 28-inch difference. This door from the street level, you go here.
But is that door, can it look the same as that?
Well, I try to hide it, like
Oh, blended,
we'll
right.
blend it same color of the building, so they won't see much.
It might be better with an aluminum door.
Yeah, and centered.
It might look better.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
But I will take
Plaster
suggestions,
surface, yeah.
no problem.
Question though is, these are down below, right?
This is about like 30
But
inches.
they're
below.
downstairs.
30 inches.
They're
No,
downstairs.
downstairs, sorry.
So you could flip the stair, couldn't you? Yeah, the stair will be running over it.
This one?
Yeah.
Because they have to come and check, the gas company is required, they have to come check from outside. It's kind of a requirement.
So they come
That's
down
why I
and
put
check
outside.
it. But let's say you come down this way,
It's under the stairs,
then you gotta go under the
They-
stairs to check it.
they have to go to the garage,
Well, you
and
could-
come back from there.
You could put a lockbox and they could open it with a key.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to get this door out of here and put it here, because you can't do it right now because you got all this, right?
Yeah, it's built there already, this is big, it's opening, everything is done.
Oh, the opening is there, but the stair is not there.
This is the,
Oh, it is, okay.
it's concrete, solid.
Okay, that's,
Okay, then I would say if we have to have it there, let's center it and make it the same door as that.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, send it.
Right.
Because that looks more, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, I think those are the questions that we have for now, so.
Thank you.
We'll call you
Some
back
glass
up.
window too.
Okay, well, we'll call you back up.
One
if we
last
have any
question, though.
questions.
That elevator, I guess the other thing that I was getting at was, does that a lift enclosure needs to be an enclosure, or can it be open?
They said it's more than, when they do more than 5 feet, it's helping enclosed, fully enclosed.
So you can't have, because you couldn't have a railing around it, and put like a little gate, and then have this more like post with a little
I
That
did
might be
that,
worse, because then you see all
I
the
did that before.
No, you put it behind the rail.
Because the lift coming from the garage, if it's from the garage to this level, it's 12 feet, It has to be enclosed more than 5 feet.
Because are they anchoring to the roof structure? Is that?
They are installing just inside. And there's the side mechanical something attached to the wall.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So I think it's, we cannot remove the landscaping altogether from the back portion to make that, to meet the, I guess, the maximum or the minimum requirement of the code. So I think we have to make a determination of how high is the planter wall, at what level do we consider it part of the open space versus too high, then we have to cut it off at the planter. So,
I like the 18-inch idea. I mean,
so you would be okay with, if it's 18 inches, to consider the whole planter and the, I guess, to the building as an open space area?
yeah, I mean, the code allows it, it's just how we,
No, we need to decide, I guess, if.
Here's what code says, and I asked rather to get the copy of 2004. This is 2009. So on and so forth, so forth. A minimum width of not less than 10 feet. And it goes into other things of what the restrictions are, but the minimum width
Right.
has to be 10 feet. And if the planter is within that, that was that thing that we always struggled with, you're encroaching on that
But
minimum
where does
width.
it say that planter is a barrier to the 10 feet?
Well, it's an obstruction, because it's got to be at grade. It says at grade, it can't exceed 10% and a maximum grade of 15%. So anything
Which
that's
reads-
above those grade angles encroaches on that space. So, for example, if you have a grade angle of 15%, the very nature of having a planter barrier is
Didn't it talk about a
encroaching in
seating
those-
wall as well can be part of, or a seating area can be part of that?
I think Vilya is looking to respond to.
Okay. Is this what
Now, you said
the
that
part
we-
that you had read?
This is 2009. Hers was an
If we remove the
interpretation by
planters from the-
by
So that was the back
planning
then
in
one,
2006.
Out of the doors,
I've
yeah.
asked rather to see if he's got the code from
Could fill those
2004.
holes in.
Right.
And that's something else I inadvertently copied. But it goes on and tells you what the purpose of a common area is to be enjoyed.
You said that we cannot remove the planters from the back, but we could remove them.
Well, he's saying that his landscape number is right there. So if we remove.
No, not
it,
remove and replace and relocate.
I
If he
guess we could,
relocates
yeah.
in front
I
of the
guess we could.
doorways, he has to figure out a way to ventilate the garage mechanically.
Right.
But then that would meet code, because now you have a common area that's more than 10 feet.
Okay.
More than 10 feet.
Then I think we can make a motion to say that that's one of the things that we need
Right.
to address.
Now, the venting of the garage, maybe we should have, because, we might be opening up a new can of worms here that could be even harder to solve. What do you think?
Well, looking at the picture here, the deck pops up, so that's a retaining wall that pops up. They could probably core some holes in there and put a fan there of some sort, I would imagine. It's probably easier than cutting a hole in that deck and putting in a,
Which one are you looking at? What are you looking at?
that's the deck that pops up. So that's the concrete retaining wall.
I'm sorry, I think we
Sure, we
may
have it.
have missed the issue regarding the venting.
Oh, they're right in
We're
front of the
considering-
entrances to the
Oh,
units.
of course.
Yeah, it's not really pleasant, and that's a good place to put a
Okay,
planter box.
that's right.
Right.
Now, is that
Um,
passive venting, or is it a
Yes,
mechanical?
it's
Just
passive.
Just
But we're
You could put
contemplating.
mechanical. You could put mechanical, it's just more cost.
Yeah, you can
find
put you can duct it.
Okay. I think we should hear from Vilya.
This
What
is
do we
reading
have?
out of, well, this is November 2006, actually. A minimum common outdoor space of 200 square feet shall be provided per dwelling unit for the first 25 dwelling units, et cetera, and then it goes on a little bit. Any common outdoor space shall have a minimum level surface dimension of 10 feet and a minimum area of 200 square feet. Landscaping and seating shall be permanently integrated into all required common outdoor spaces. No street front setback or side street setback shall be used for common outdoor spaces. And then if you go on into the landscaping section, it says, for purposes of this chapter, permanent landscaping shall consist of landscaped areas at the ground level or in planters having a minimum length, width, diameter, and depth of 24 inches. In the R 30/50, et cetera, the soil depth shall be increased 30 inches minimum where trees are to be planted. So that's why there was this conversation and discussion at the time, because back when we had multiple projects coming in for multifamily, the two sets of codes, the landscaping section, you can provide it in planters and at ground floor surface, and then you had the section that specified the common outdoor space, which would have a minimum surface level of 10 feet, minimum area of 200 square feet. Thus, after this discussion again, and, following
Simone,
the
you had a
approval of
question
this, the zoning administrator came back and said that if a common outdoor space is solely just planters, that's not consistent with code. Though planters and seating and other such items may be part of the common outdoor space, just solely planters wouldn't constitute.
I see. Mr. Simone, you had a question.
Where's the limit, though? What?
The limit doesn't go into, fine mathematics.
We get to deal with that.
Well, my question is the following. We have a very unique case over here. It's built, so there's a certain hardship associated with it. With every zoning and every code, there's always a relief mechanism that one could apply for. I'm thinking if in the rear, if that planter, let's say, was 6 inches, and it was lawn, and it certainly would be much more conducive to the common open space in the rear because it would be lawn and it's something that you could lay in on or sit on or whatever. And we have this landscape section of the code that says it has to have a minimum height of 30 inches or whatever. 24. I thought it was 24.
Inches.
I thought it was 24. So it is 24, but it says you have to have a minimum depth of 24. And so my question, and I'm not sure if staff could answer this without looking into it, but what relief mechanism is there, or does this board have the authority to reduce that 24 to 6 inches for that rear portion?
Again, if it was possible to relocate the landscaping planters
easier.
to some other area on the site so that the project is able to provide the required 25% landscaping and still allow for that 6 inches of grass area in the common outdoor area, you'd be fulfilling both requirements.
The problem is we're so close. The common open area diagram indicates that this area in front of the doors is 11'6". So if you need 10 feet for the common open space, and then you need a minimum of 2 foot width for the landscaping, as you just read out, we're 6 inches shy over there as well. So that's what my question is there a relief mechanism for that landscape requirement? Does this board have the authority, or is that a zoning administrator? Is that a variance? What is that? Because if we have that authority, we could certainly...
I don't think we have the authority to change code. We're just...
So that's my question. Is it a variance? Is it a modification, an adjustment? Because we could approve the project subject to that modification, and then the applicant would have to go and get that modification at a later point in time.
I think in any common outdoor area, if we're really to be usable as a recreation area, I'm not sure the code anticipates that it has to be completely level. I mean, you couldn't, if you wanted to be super strict on what level means, it means you couldn't even have a bench in there, because that interrupts how level it is. I think the board probably has some leeway in interpreting that some amount of planter space, even if it's not completely level, still makes it function as a common outdoor space, and that there is sufficient usable level area. Well, there's sufficient level area to make it usable. Let's put it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Foy. So if that's the case, and if this board has the authority to consider a certain portion of the common open space and the landscaping thereof to determine it's usable, then there seems to be two options available for us. And I'm bringing this up in the sense of time so we can move on. One is, well, there might be three options. One is that we approve a 24-inch planter in the rear as presented. Option number 2 is we reduce that planter height from 24 to 6 inches and just have it as a lawn area. Option number 3 is relocate it to the front of the opening, to the front of the unit entrances, and in so doing, relocate the ventilation, which is right now passive, to a mechanical system. And that would be up to the applicant to determine how to vent that. Those are 3 options available to us, so do we think it's a good idea to discuss every one of them, or either one of them?
No?
Sure, if I can add
No,
something.
go ahead.
Okay, so Rather was kind enough to pull us the code from 2003 concerning landscape area, and it's essentially the same one that we currently have as 2009 or whatever when I was looking at. It's pretty clear that 10 feet is the minimum. It talks about intrusions to that, but it does have a feature here that I think may be that opportunity. Nothing in this section shall prohibit the usable open space areas from containing topographical features exceeding the maximum design grade criteria if those features are designed solely for architectural or landscape relief, provided that those areas are approved by the Director of Planning. So it appears that if we're doing something that we would recommend to encroach in that area, like in landscaping, we can recommend it, but it appears here that the Director of Planning would have the final say whether they could change that.
And that's the relief mechanism.
The relief mechanism, yeah.
That was the 2003.
It was a wonderful job,
2003.
Mr. Dong, finding that.
Okay.
Is that available in the current code?
Yes, it's in the current code.
It is in the
April
current code.
2009.
I'm going to go with that.
So what do we do with that, then? Do we just leave it up to the...
I'm not crazy about a 6-inch high grassy area. That seems like it's going to be,
My feeling is, as urban architect suggested, that having the planter be 18 inches, have it be usable like a seating area, is attractive. I mean, the space is 10 feet. There's not going to be a lot of activity in the 10-foot space. And then my suggestion was having us approve it as that, and then have the Director of Planning make the final determination as required by code.
I think that's a great idea. I could
If
support
someone
that.
would like to formulate a motion, then?
Well, then very quickly, the conditions that we've placed, we need to basically hear those conditions because there was a lot of comments that were made. But do we want to basically bestow that upon staff to coordinate?
I think it would be better if staff recite back some of the things we heard.
Very good.
We heard that the combination of siding and smooth plaster may be more appropriate. And my question to the board is, do you have a location of where you would like to see siding or smooth
I think
plaster?
that's something they could work with you with.
Okay. So it would be up to staff to guide the applicant.
Guide them into a more contemporary feel.
Okay. And there was discussion about the roof cladding, whether it be more appropriate to use tile roof instead of the composition shingle as proposed.
The tile roof is an issue because that's a structural
That is
implication, so,
that is a good point, unless it's lightweight.
yeah, but they may have trouble. I mean, if they don't have trouble with it, I guess it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
So that would mean the applicant would need to investigate whether the added weight of the roof tile be
Lightweight tile, if that would surpass the structural capability of the existing roof.
okay, lightweight. Is there a color you would prefer to see?
I think at this point, they're going to work with you quite a bit between,
I think maybe
A
the items
question.
are adding up now to, maybe they need to come match or something.
We've been hearing a little bit about update the look of the project. There was a little bit of a concern about the corbels. So I'm wondering if the corbel, because we also heard that the corbels can go away as well. So a question that arises that if the corbels are eliminated, would it be possible to use a standing seam metal roof in this case? And it changes the look to a more contemporary look, but right now the look is not really that craftsman or traditional. So that would likely be a material that wouldn't necessitate additional structure for the roof.
That'd be a great addition to it.
Was there anything else, Randall?
And staff also heard that the color needs improvement, possibly use 2 to 3 colors, combination in the same range or color palette,
Complementary color.
complementary color scheme.
And that comment was intended to be the body of the building rather than a number of accent colors. That was the intent. And then we also heard that color could substitute for material in that case. Is there agreement on that? Rather than having...
I think that was my point. If they do a good enough job, I don't see maybe it's
Okay, so it could be all stucco with the variety of minimum 3 colors.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, and if wood trellises are going to be incorporated, they need to be consistent with sheet A3.
Or need to be incorporated as shown on sheet A3.
Okay, needs to be incorporated as shown on sheet A3. The same with the wood corbels. If it is going to be incorporated, and sheet A3 should be followed. Landscape planters should be reduced to a maximum 18 inches in height. That correct?
That's just at the common open space,
At
correct?
the common open space. Thank you. And there was also discussion about possibly relocating the planters on the west elevation located at the front of the entry doors. Is that still a condition the
Leave it
board
as
would
an
like to
option.
see?
I mean, they could, as an option if they want to. I mean, I think we should recommend it. It'd be nice not to have those vents right in
Vents,
front of
right.
the house.
Yeah,
the unit.
that was in order to relocate the vents. That was the intent of that comment.
And also solve the 10-foot issue.
Is that a consideration, or
Yeah.
that's a consideration rather than a condition?
And also there was concern about the door that faces the street on the handicap lift. Is there a preference in terms of a steel door? Staff heard a steel door may be more appropriate and centered.
I think it was more of
A unit
match
door.
the other door and center it if it has to
Look
be
like a
there.
unit
Right.
door.
Okay.
Right.
So
Like a unit door, no? Is that what you were intending?
Like a residential unit door.
Like a unit
Whatever
door.
they have on the side, I mean, they're showing
That's
a
a
different
unit?
door there.
Oh, I see. That's on the
Yeah.
other.
yeah, it
Just
looks
match it to that.
The way that we have it reading is the door at the front accessible lift should be centered and the same as shown on the west elevation.
One thing that could be interesting, for example, as Mr. Simone indicated, for example, let's say that this panel right here was wood siding, for example. This panel right here, or this little element could be also wood siding, in which you could then apply the wood siding to the door. So as you looked at the door, it essentially wouldn't look as a door, it would look more as the wood siding. You could put a frame and wood siding on it, so that the door
Yeah.
reads as a panel of the wall.
It's a little hokey looking. I don't.
I know, but, yeah.
But they may not be able to achieve it. They may not be able to achieve
I don't know. Anyway, did you mention anything concerning the middle of the doors and the windows to be
Yes, well,
clad?
staff had a couple conditions concerning the windows and how they should be treated. So let me just read each one of those conditions and see if the board feel that they are sufficient in terms of consistency with what the board would like to see. The window should be recessed from the face of the wall within the existing frame. Windows and doors should be wood, fiberglass, or aluminum, and vinyl windows shall not be used. Wood seals should be provided for all windows and door openings. Foam should not be used. And three-dimensional divided lights on the exterior should be provided or eliminated from the window design. And I know the board had discussed about windows pretty much in the same manner as what's reflected in the conditions, that aluminum clad windows would be okay, must have three-dimensional divided lights,
If at all.
if at all. Just
I think it'd be quite nice if, with a standing seam metal roof, not
Yeah,
to
right,
have
not to
any.
have the divide.
Okay, so that condition that they could be eliminated would read fairly similarly to what's in your report. The question that we have, the applicant is saying now that the windows are aluminum wood clad. The question that we have is, If during construction the applicant comes back with a question about the windows, could they be, would the board find fiberglass also acceptable?
I think so.
I would.
So if we have that in the condition, then if that does occur, we won't recommend it, but if that does occur, then staff has the flexibility to work with them on that point.
They were considering, not fiberglass, they were considering vinyl.
Right, and we can include in the condition that vinyl is not,
Right.
shall not be used.
But if we're going to go with contemporary, I would remove the divided lights.
Okay, so we'll include that as well. If standing seam metal roof is used, the windows should not have divided lights. We can be very clear about that.
Even if it isn't a standing seam metal roof, I think those plain window would work a lot better. It'd be much more contemporary.
Okay. And there were two other conditions that were included in the staff report. Stucco with a fine or smooth texture shall be used, and wrought iron for the balconies and gates should be simple in design, mainly of vertical bars as shown on the elevations.
Those are good.
We did hear the preference for a horizontal or a cable rail.
Problem with horizontal ones in residential, kids can climb up there and fall over, and they should be vertical.
Okay, so the way that they're shown, it should be conditioned to remain.
I was the one that brought it up. The wrought iron, as you indicated, I think is very dated. So any kind of a contemporary railing system that would be, I think, a good condition.
Okay, a more contemporary rail rather than what's shown, but it should be simple and contemporary.
Okay.
We have a motion.
I'll move to accept the project with the conditions as noted.
I'll second it.
Okay.
We have a motion on the
Can't,
floor.
can't really talk.
Well, you don't need
Open it up.
to. Well, you don't need to open the meeting to
Okay.
hear from the applicant.
Can we just hear? Okay.
We're going to, okay.
I don't know if he's the applicant, but he's the owner. Okay. Okay. Why don't you come up, fill out a card?
I'll withdraw my motion.
But you could fill it out afterwards.
Yeah.
Thank you very
You can
much.
state your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you. My name is Bob Emery, and I'll just give my office address as 14958 Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks, and I represent the lender, of which right now we are also agents for the owners, because we have been saddled with this project as well as you have for some time, and we've had multiple failures on the parts of those who've attempted to develop this property. And we have lost a number of potential buyers from this. You understand the marketplace is rather fragile, continues to be fragile. And I understand the complexity of your work, and I appreciate the efforts that you've all placed in this. I think the sensitivity that I feel at the moment is anything that could bring this back to your desk. We'd like to see you be able to finish with it, as well as we'd like to be able to satisfy all those who have invested a great deal of their money, because this is all monies that have been by moms and pops around the neighborhood, because we're a private lender. And so all those who have invested their hard-earned money in this property have lost a considerable amount of money. And we've had to stand beside them, and that's a need on our part to be able to do that, to be able to ease their pain on how much they lose. So we've had to lose along with them. What I feel that I would like to express is that inasmuch as we've lost at least 3 potential buyers because of the staging of this, and if there is another stage of this, we don't know just where that will impact us. So that's one issue, is because we understand that after the decision is made, there's going to be some, I think it's 15 days, in which the neighbors get to comment. And then, but if there would be anything that would perhaps bring another 15 days into this could be a problem. So if there are, in your decision-making, whether it would be a standing seam or any other roof that would be possible, or railing design or anything else, because that tends to take and play in heavily on the part of the buyer as well. But we are very sensitive to community and all those things which make a project compatible with the neighbors. This is a very strong thing for us, too. So I guess I just want to voice that concern that we would be able to take and get to a level of decision-making today that 15 days that's going to be ahead of us, immediately ahead of us, would be ample to bring us to a point that we would be able to re-permit this project and be able to take and have the confidence and bring the confidence to a buyer that they would be able to make a decision, because we've lost, again, because of escrow times and everything, we haven't been able to take and satisfy those needs. So that would be my request. If there would be such a decision that could be made today that would be able to satisfy, everything could be satisfied within the next 15 days. And colors and those things, those are decisions which are strong and needed to be made and pointed out, and we understand that totally. I know it's very complicated when you have a building that's gone through this much time and you have to deal with it coming and going back and intermingling decision-making that you had to make before. That's terrible. I'm very sympathetic to that. So I just wanted to voice that. And I would like to be able to take and have the confidence somehow in this decision today that we would be able to get to a point where we would actually be able to re-permit in 15 days if there would be no resistance, any major, or if there was one, could it be such that it could be handled administratively rather than have to have another hearing?
There's no more hearings.
I don't think we should.
When you say re-permitting, you mean just on the design portion, right?
Yes, because what happened, we were doing extensions because we had the failures, and so I made one attempt, and I was successful with getting an extension on a permit. On my next one, it was viewed as being inappropriate. I brought the check in, and it was satisfied, but then it was reclaimed. It was revoked. And so that, so in essence, this is a re-permitting.
Right.
Mr. Chair and board members, I believe what Mr. Emery is referring to is the 15-day appeal periods. If the board should approve the project today, the appeal period would start from today.
Right.
However, regarding the permitting process, the project would need to be resubmitted for plan check through building and safety. Staff cannot guarantee or know how long that process would take. So
Right.
the
I just want to
option
make
of
that part clear is
Accept that, yeah.
we can.
It's a different department.
Yes,
So-
I understand that. So
And I thank you for the history sort of that you provided of the project. But I would say it also depends on how well your designer also works with the staff on the comments that we have made on the project. So
he works very
part of
hard.
that.
He'll work.
No, we're not doubting that he does. We're just saying that also impacts what
Yes,
the 15
yes.
days that could or the extension from there. So
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
sure.
To further explain to those watching, we are doing our best to have a very definitive decision this evening, and the dialogue that we're having is to make sure that the language of the approval is clarified so that you and your architect can work with staff and we know exactly what the board is expecting, as well as understanding a level of flexibility that might be necessary as we work together. So that's the nature of our dialogue. Thank you for your concern.
Rather than, just for clarification, the rear common area planters, we're saying that we recommend them to not be higher than 18 inches.
Correct.
And that's our approval, but that final, as required by code, final approval shall be administered by the Director of Planning.
Okay.
You want to quickly,
Close the hearing.
today, go see the Director of
hearing.
Planning.
Oh, we never opened it, so.
Oh, you didn't open it?
Go ahead.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions as noted.
I'll second it.
So there was a motion by Mr. Ellis and a second by Mr. Simonian. This will be roll call. Mr. Eliano?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
And Chairman Yu.
Yes.
Motion passes to approve with condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the next one, which is the third one on the agenda. We'll see in a couple weeks. 1 PGR 2009-008-A at 432 Hydrant Drive. And who's presenting this one? Chalet.
5 minutes per case?
It's not that one. It's this one.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to go over the report here, and then I approach the board and explain further. The project with the case number 1 PDR 2009-008, located at 432 Audren Drive, consists of addition of 72 square feet to the first floor, 500 square feet of new porches, and a new 1,485 square foot second story to an existing 1,044 square foot one-story single-family residence. The existing house, as I mentioned, is one story, and the subject lot is 8,925 square feet. This is located in R1R, floor area ratio district 2. Audren Drive slope down from the western side. The site plan remains mostly unchanged. The existing attached garage at the front of the building remained at its current location with a 20-feet street front setback. A total of 500 square foot of porches include 2 at the rear and 1 at the front as an entrance porch. The first floor additions of 72 square foot include 30 square foot at the rear and 59 square foot on the front of the house. The new second story is located at 26.5 feet from the street front. No major changes or reduction of landscaping is proposed since the bulk of the addition is contained in the proposed upper floor. The house will be larger in mass and scale due to the new second story, and the porch on the first floor also contribute to this. The second floor steps back on 3 sides relative to the first floor. The height of the house will increase from 15 feet 9 inches to 25 feet. The new porches and the second story change the envelope of the house. On each elevation, the proposed house is designed with modulation and multi-level roofing. The subject site is higher than the property to its east. Staff has suggested for the upper floor to be shifted to the west to minimize the impact on the single-story house and to better verify the slope along the street frontage. However, shifting the upper floor to the west would have the negative effect of placing it closer to the existing adjacent 2-story home, where the windows of the 2 neighboring properties will face each other. On each elevation, the modulation and introduction of multi-level combination of gable and hipped roofs minimize the appearance of the massing. The design of the existing house closely resembles ranch style. The proposed design incorporates elements and details of craftsman style of architecture. These include rafters, brick-based columns, and sidings under the gable roof. The project changes the building facade on each and all sides of the residence. Combination of hipped and gable roofs, with combination of hips and gable roofs. Gable roofs appears as the dominant feature on all elevation except for the south. Wood-clad fiberglass windows with wood trims are proposed to the entire house. Design and details such as the entrance porch with typical craftsman style of post, vertical siding on the gable roof, and horizontal sidings proposed to the front facade of the residence are consistent with the proposed style of the house. I'm going to approach the board to explain further. The hatched area, which is shown here, shows the extent of the second story. The darker hatch is the first floor addition on the front. The 2 porches at the back are the one to the side and one to the rear, and this is the entrance porch. So if we look on the floor plan, this is the extent of the front addition, and the kitchen is extended. That's the 13 square foot, which is enlarging the kitchen. And the second story is towards the east, which is There is a one-story building here, which is shown on the photos, and the two-story to that side. And basically, this concludes my presentation. If there is any question, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? No?
You know, I do have one, and I slipped you the note. We, as a board, back in September, looked at the house next door, and I don't remember myself what our decision was, but I just kind of wanted, do you remember that?
Well, I remember if you're looking at the home, you're looking to the right, or because
to
the
the
right
left,
we
the
looked
downhill.
at like 2 years ago.
The one to the east, downhill one.
That was the one that had the retaining wall issue matter.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember. I just kind of want to make sure we're consistent in our neighborhood, and that's what my concern was. Just, and I'm sorry I didn't notice that until I looked at the property yesterday and realized it. And
Was that immediately to the
yes,
east?
it still has the sign up. It's still a sign up. That's why I knew it.
'Cause I think that was a second-story addition.
I think it was also.
Because we were talking about the balcony to the rear and the views
Right.
from the backyard.
Right. So I. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we have more than a few cards here. So let's start with the applicant, Mr. Mike Garagos. And you know the drill. Just your name and address for the record, please.
Good to see you all. Good evening. Mike Garagos, 3501 Buena Vista, Glendale, 91208. I'm in agreement with everything in the staff's report. Excellently done. Except I have obviously one hesitation, which is the massing issue. That was not capricious. It was very much an early idea on the house. They were interested in the craftsman style, and in reality, it's sort of the great uncle to ranch anyway. So it's a very similar massing to what is there and what is on the street. My intent with it was to try to keep the massing strong and try to reinforce that element, that craftsman element, and also try to minimize the garage. I was trying to do as much as you could to kind of minimize the garage impact on the street. One thing to keep in mind is that we actually aren't building as far as we could on that left side, which would be the east side. We actually have a 12-foot setback on that side, so we could have been another 7 feet over if we wanted to. It just was unnecessary in the planning to expand in that direction. To answer Mr. Ellis's question, it was a month or two ago, and I think actually the applicant, I think, is here and might even speak for our project. So I think they were denied because I think the intent was, as I reviewed the video, was that it was two vertical elements, massing, and I think that was the issue. They were looking for something more of a horizontal massing, which just so happened, I think, to be what we had proposed or what we are proposing. In addition to that, I think there is a problem. I can understand staff's idea that might be a good idea to do a stepping where you would have the two-story on the right-hand side, then it would, as it steps down, it would go to one-story on the left-hand side. I think that would be a nice thing to do as sort of development standards for a new project or a new subdivision. I think it's difficult to impose that kind of idea on an existing situation with all the particulars, in addition to the fact that the standard on this street is not that. The standard on this street is a two-story that is on the left-hand side, and that's the case with the house directly to the right and the next one up the hill. Actually, the only homes that really have two stories, have that on the left-hand side. So, whereas staff might want to encourage that idea of stepping, I think it's not traditional to this street, and there actually is traditions that are consistent with what we are proposing. Also, there was one omission, and I apologize, I didn't put the stone on the sample board. It is going to be a cultured ledger stone in a warm tone, and I could work with staff on a color choice and material choice if you would be so inclined. The massing and the roof structure, I think, is very similar to what is there. I think it's very consistent with the ranch style. It's just that it is a sort of an offshoot. Like I said, it's the precursor to the ranch style, if you want to think of it that way. And in reality, if you went and saw the story poles, it's a 10-foot, slightly under 10-foot increase in the main ridge, which is literally just what is necessary to add that second floor. So I think it's a very minimal impact. And if you notice in the packet, which we just handed out, there's the owner went around and talked to all the contiguous neighbors, and with the exception of one, got signatures at least not negative towards it, and I consider that positive. That's about it. I think the owner might want to speak, and if there's any other questions you might have.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicants?
No, I don't. Thank you.
We're good. Thank you. Thank you. The next card would be Greg Yen, the owner.
Good evening. My name is Greg Yen. We're the owners of the property, 432 Audrain Drive. I just wanted to give you some background into the project tonight and also talk about some of the massing as well from the owner's standpoint. We first bought the house in 1995. At the time, it was my wife and I, and our full intention was to move out of the house within 5 years to be able to raise a family in a larger house. So now here we are 14 years later. We've grown to like the neighborhood a lot. We've grown to really like Glendale, and we now have 4 kids. And 4 kids in a 1,900 square foot house gets kind of cramped, and so that's what prompted the project to add the second story. Our desire from when we grew up is that all the bedrooms were going to be upstairs, and so the design that you see reflected is our desire to have the family sleeping on one level. Now, the design for that, obviously we want it to be very sensitive to the neighborhood, and I think Mike has achieved that in the design. We're very sensitive to the neighbors' wishes, and that's why we took the plans to the neighborhood so they could have a look at it and have some input into it while we were still into the design phase. And you'll see that there's a vast majority have, either in support of the project or are not against the project. At this point, I wanted to also address the massing issue. Again, Mike has said is that it was very important to us to, maintain a certain architectural integrity to the house, and we also wanted to make sure that, it had a minimal impact to the neighbors on the street. Our neighbor who is impacted will be, if the design does shift towards the west, is the existing two-story house beside us on the upper part of the street. And the one thing that, I don't know if you have a photo over there, but this photo shows that if we do move the massing to that side of the street, our houses will literally be on top of each other. There is a 4.5 foot space between our house and the property, and a 7 foot spacing between his house and his property. So it's less than 12 feet that we will have between the houses if the massing does shift over on that side. The other reason why we put the massing, we considered the massing on the east side of the street is that because we wanted to utilize the current layout, and the current layout has the bedrooms on the east side of the street. So the most efficient way you could put the bedrooms upstairs was to obviously stack the second story on the first story where where the bedrooms are currently existing, and that way we felt it could minimize the impact of the total massing of the structure on the street. So, those were some of the impetuses of, why we made the decisions on the massing that we did. Basically, the existing conditions were very important to us. We also wanted to be, very considerate to our neighbor, because if that massing does go on the west side of the street, his view into Glendale gets obliterated. And so we wanted to minimize as much of the structure on that side of the street, so at least he could preserve some, as much of his view as possible. And we hope that the design that we have achieves it.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the owner? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next card we have is Sunny Pana.
Hi, my
You can
name
state
is
your
Sunny.
name. Okay,
Yeah.
you got it. Thanks.
My name is Sunny Pana, and I live 425 Audrain Drive, which is right in front of Greg's house. I am totally not against them building another story, or at least half a story on top of their house. I understand. They have 4 kids. I have 2, and I live in a almost 2,000 square feet home, and it's never enough. So that's understandable. But the way the street is going down this way, some of these, like the house like this, looks like a wall going up. And the beauty of our street is the openness of it. when you look at the street, most of the houses are smaller, and if they have added, like, it has that openness to it. But this, I don't know anything about architect, and I'm sorry I can't express it well, but it looks like a wall going up. And if everyone wants to continue doing the same thing, it will take away from the openness of the street. I do have a city view in front of us. Their house, even the next door neighbor, which have been denied last year, I guess, by the board to build. Even if they build, it will not impact our view at all because we're way higher. But it's the openness of the street and the beauty of the street that I think it's going to take away from. If they try to minimize it a little bit and take away from this, square wally design, I don't know. That's what I was suggesting and thinking. Other than that.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
You live across the street?
I live across the street, yes.
And so, are you one of the signatures on this project?
No.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So which one is it?
Number 15, picture 15.
Oh, so one across and over. Yeah, so it's the non-signed one. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Clarifies it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next card is Richard Pegilo. Pegalo. Not even close. So sorry.
Yeah, my name is Richard Pegalo, and I own the property at 441 Audrain Drive. It would be number 11 on the map in the package. Okay. And we kind of look over Greg's house, and we actually participated in the plans. They took our input, and we really like the design. It's anything but a wall. I think it has a lot of good characteristics. We were quite enthused that they decided to stay in the neighborhood with the growing family and are very, very supportive of the project as submitted. Concerning the massing, we view it as a balanced house. We would really hate to see it, two homes back to back, separated by less than 20 feet. So we really do not support the staff's recommendation. Concerning the homes on the other side, the reality of it is there are several homes on that side which sooner or later are going to be two-story homes. So I think looking long-term, there's no need to force this house to try to conform to a single-family house because there's a row of homes that in the next few years will be two-story homes as well. So I think we have to take a longer-term view of what's going on the street. And finally, I think just the overall project is going to add value not only to Greg's property but to all of the properties around us. So we support the project as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one quick question. You're one of the 3 two-story homes on the street. Did you remodel, or was your home initially a two-story construction?
I actually bought the house with my partner about 10 years ago, and it's the largest home on the block. It was built, I think, in 1972, added onto and remodeled in 1990. And
that was when the second story was added in 1990?
I think it had an original second story,
okay.
But it added a wing to the back of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next card we have Brian Labange. Could state your name and address, please.
Good evening. Brian Labange, L.A., B as in boy, O-N-G-E. The address, 431 Audrain Drive.
14.
Number 14 is my residence and has been my residence for the past 36 years. So I've seen a lot of things change and come and go on Audrain and in Glendale itself. I am the oldest of 9 brothers. One of my brothers sits on the Los Angeles City Council, Councilman Tom Labange. I invited them all to come up over the last 90 days to give their opinions regarding the Yen's expansion and going upward. And the only concern they had is a city-owned tree, which kind of takes away from the view a very minor tree that sits between 2 residents that are here tonight on the south side of the street. The home to the right of the Yen home is a two-story home, does not bother my view, nor does it bother me in any way, shape, or form. The addition of the second floor for the Yens will not bother me nor my view. The city tree will be there, and you can take care of that aspect of things, but it'll be fine. All the brothers did agree that the view from the house was fine, the second story was fine, and the house to the left going east, which has been in front of you in the last 6 or 8 months, the addition to a second story does not affect me in any way, shape, or form. The other thing I wanted to point out, which some people are not really aware, the city trees are owned by the city of Glendale. We thought that we could trim them and prune them back just to improve us who live on the north side of the street. And then I found out that they're your trees, so we left that. Yeah, yes.
But there are trees.
Yes,
Everyone's trees.
Everyone.
Yours too.
Yes, yes. And I let it be. But the house to the right of the Yen's home does not affect the view, and the Yen home will not affect the view at all, and I like the design that they're going for. And the home to the left of the Yens will not affect the view at all. And this is the opinion of my 8 younger brothers, no sisters in the family. But living in Glendale has been a real experience, and having these changes occur now are really nice. When the Yen family is out of town, as they were recently, it's kind of not nice hearing the kids. And they're a great group of kids and a great family. I lost my wife in 2002, but we bought in 1973. And just to close, we bought for $70,000.
You rubbing it in, sir? Are you?
No, I'm really not. I'm thankful to the Lord that we were at the right place at the right time. In closing, as I said, 36 years, and I've told you about my brother, the trees, and I really encourage that consideration be given to the Yens for the expansion without a lot of complications, because it does not affect me. And the house on the right is fine, and it's a 2-story home. And the house on the left, which will be reconsidered for a 2-story home, does not affect the north side of the street at all. And I live across from Richard, who was up just a minute ago, and we share a driveway with 4 homes. And everything seems to go well. So I would encourage you to give it some consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next card, we have Rafi Benbinian. Was that an R? Berberian?
Berberian.
Oh, sorry.
I live at 440 Audrain. Actually,
And your name for the record, sir?
Rafi Berberian.
Thank you.
Okay.
Number 5.
You're the 2-story.
I did sign the document, but I never really saw the plans, so I wasn't sure what I was signing.
Hey, I'd like to sell you something.
Yeah. She did. She sold me Girl Scout cookies that day. So I'm not sure. I'm on the right side, and I'm not sure if there's any windows that are facing my side of the home.
No, there's no.
This is your side of the home. You're the 2-story, right?
Right, yeah.
That's your side of the home.
Because I have plans for an addition that I haven't filed yet, but I think review board is good for 2 years, right? Yeah, so I have my bathroom actually faces that way. I do lose some view from my son's room, from the mass that he's going to build. So I don't know if I can get some of it back, but the little kitchen part, if that was bumped out, then I pick up some view from downstairs. Definitely going to lose some sun that comes in from those windows. And I don't know how big the mass is, but they do have a bunch of red
Story poles?
I guess, I don't know, red ribbons hanging. I thought they were trying to kill the birds or something for a while there. So I don't know if that's the exact height or what the height is. If it's taller than me in my second story, I'm not sure.
Top of the pole should be the top of the ridge. on those story poles. The wooden pole that goes up, the top of that is set at the height of the ridge line.
Okay.
So that height should be this height. Either this one or this one, whichever one you're looking at.
Two heights there.
We need you to, because it's being recorded, we need to be on the mic.
I guess there's a lot going on. I can't really tell. I mean, the neighborhood is definitely California Ranch, so I don't know if, the arts and crafts movement will, continue, but I don't know. I don't think so. There's probably one arts and crafts in the neighborhood, I think. So that, I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you, how big that is. But obviously it's big. So, certainly I'm glad that there's no windows facing that way because that's my bathroom. But at the same time, I'm not sure where they're putting the air conditioning unit. I'm not sure where the noise level would be. Is it going to be on the garage? Is it?
Those are things that we can post to the applicant.
I'm assuming he has the right to do the second story per lot square footage, but in actuality, I think the lot is small versus the house masses, so I think you have to take those into consideration. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And the last card we have is Kathy Santo Domingo.
Good evening, board members. Kathy Santo Domingo. I live at 424 Audrain, which is the property to the east of this particular project. We were the house. Basically, we're here this evening to speak in support of this project. My husband and I are also planning to resubmit. In looking at a second floor addition next door, I think it would be a great addition to our neighborhood. When we first moved into the neighborhood in 2002, really the street was composed of all of the 1950s homes. Some of the landscaping look great. There's a couple that doesn't look so great. It's nice to see so many years down the road that there's a new home that's been constructed at the end of the cul-de-sac. We have one other neighbor on the north side of the street that's done some exterior renovation. It's nice to see all of the improvements going on in the street. I think, as one of our neighbors mentioned earlier, I think it's great to see improvements. It raises the overall value for all of our neighbors. In terms of the massing, our kitchen window kind of faces into Greg's side yard. And I know there was a lot of concern in terms of an addition to the left side. Right now, when I look out of our kitchen window, I look into a block wall. The block wall is taller than me, so I'm assuming it's at least 6 feet tall and then some. So whether or not it's a one-story at that immediate area or a two-story at that immediate area, it really doesn't make a difference from our perspective. The Yens have been fabulous neighbors, and so in looking at what they have, in the consideration that they put into considerations for the neighbor's side yard and our side yard, in the way they've gone ahead and located their balconies, I think they've really put some consideration into their neighbors. With regards to the story poles, I mean, we really appreciate their story poles when it went up quite early, so it really gave ample opportunity for everyone to see where this addition would be. So I just want to thank the board members for your time. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for you? No? Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, we can't. Okay, we don't have any more cards. Did you have a quick comment? Do you want to come back up and state your name and address again?
Rafi Berberian, 440 Audrain. One of my concerns is when people do construction is to make sure that the contractor doesn't steal the money and run. We have a lot up the street.
I think that's everyone's concern.
Yeah, well, we have a lot up the street that's been empty for years, and it's because either, the city didn't require them to have a performance bond, or the general contractor.
Well, I don't think the city can require that unless it's city property. So
I think there should be some caution when people do these construction because,
well, it's their money. I think they're going to be very careful with what they try to do with they contract out to.
The contractor, we have a dirt lot up the street from our house with rebar, and and it's actually devaluated the neighbor's home for sure, Gary. But I think some kind of caution or some kind of direction should be given so they don't feel, that they can do this for a very reasonable price, and they yet, have somebody just take the money and run. So either some direction with, I don't know, something, because
Okay.
what the city's doing with the lot up the street is, just sits there empty.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We have no more cards.
The hand in here.
Are you going to keep it short?
Yes.
We need to get to the project, so please state your name and address again.
Brian Labange, 431 Audrain Drive. The lot at the end of Audrain is address 455, and I'm in the process of negotiating a possible purchase of that lot, and I will be seeing you at a later date with a plan and with my architect.
We look forward to seeing you.
And my
But
brothers-
it doesn't really concern this project, though, as it...
Well, Rafi just made reference to the lot, and I understand and respect what he said because it's gone down and down and down, and there is nothing but a collection of trash on the lot now.
Okay.
But we hope to do something with it, and then we'll see you again.
We look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Hit the hammer, man.
Okay, let's close the session. Would you like to get us started?
Sure, I'll get it started. And I had brought up the house next door earlier with staff, and I hadn't remembered that we had turned it down, but I remembered that house for a project. I like the design. I mean, I think the architect, I applaud him for doing a very nice job on a craftsman style. I was hoping to hear from the neighbors to the east, which we have heard, and they didn't seem to have a problem with the sight lines. It's true, second stories are going to be coming through that neighborhood. They're coming slowly but surely, but I think if they're well done and well articulated, we have to invite them in. The question of the air conditioners was something that I actually wanted to bring up, and I'm glad that the neighbor mentioned it. That would be something I'd want to find out, where they plan to do that or where their existing one is now. But I think I could support the project.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Aliano, would you like to go next?
Sure. Well, I'm glad to hear that the majority of the neighborhood is in support, and I think that's always a good thing. I don't really have any serious concerns about this project. I think, judging from the drawings that have been submitted, the elevations and so on, and also by what's been discussed, especially by Mr. Yin, it seems to me that this is a very well thought out project, and whenever we get projects that are well thought out, it's very hard to scrutinize, because it seems that before you came here, you really got all your ducks lined up. So I really support, I sort of encourage that to other applicants, but I'm very supportive of that sort of thing. So I don't really, all I can say is it's a very, very nice project, and I'm glad that in terms of views and obstructions, it's not really offensive to the neighbors. There is, the open feeling of the street. But I think, given the topography of the area, I don't think that this project is going to take away from that openness. So I will support the project. And again, I'd like to commend the architect and the owner for doing such a nice job.
Thank you. Mr. Simone.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. I concur. I think this is a well thought out project. There's a sense of comfort that I receive when I look at the elevations, and not just because the proportionality, the design is right, placement of the windows work, the design of the windows is true to the style, and the overall use of materials work. So you could tell that there's been quite a bit of design that has gone into this, and so we appreciate that as a board. That, coupled with all the presentations and all the thoughts that were presented to us this evening, also leads me to believe that this is a good project for the area, and it'll fit in quite nicely into the surrounding context. So I could support this project as well.
Thank you. think first of all, I want to commend Mr. Garagos. I think you did a wonderful job on the design. I think the house has a very nice look to it, and it works. I'm not so enthusiastic about that the massing being shifted to that side of it. I think that you are sort of stuck because the house that's sort of above you has created that pattern of going garage, second story, right up at the property line. I think the neighborhood, as it comes down the hill, it's got a very nice pattern that, if it's maintained, all the massing would be sort of on the upper end of it as it went down. That would be the ideal condition. The only thing that worries me is that as soon as that one shifted over, you're going to shift over, they're going to shift over, and then it's going to become sort of this, it's going to be the pattern of the area. So I'm struggling with that. I understand the situation that you're in. You don't want to, butt up against it and become apartments, facing each other. I understand the view is on that side. You want to sort of capture as much window as you can on that. So all that stuff is understandable, but I'm not comfortable with the massing of it. I guess even if it were sort of, a couple of feet even off of the main mass and try to kind of center it more, I'd feel more comfortable with. But you've actually taken it and extended out part of it. So, I'm struggling with that right now. But I really like the design, though. I think you did a great job on that, especially the whole front of it. It's going to activate that whole face. I'm okay with the styling of it, even though it's not ranch. You're right. It's what you said. What did you say? The step cousin or the cousin? But anyway, great uncle. My bad. So I think that's where I'm left with. I don't like the precedence that it sets as it steps down the hill. And it is all because of that one house that's above it. It's doing sort of the patterning of that.
But that you can't change.
Yeah, that you can't change, but if we do this, then everything else is going to become that.
There's one comforting thought in the massing, which at least makes me somewhat comfortable, is that there's that 10-foot 6 setback.
Yeah, that is the larger side of the setback.
It's the larger side. And so, assuming the applicant had pushed it all the way over, and they would have come to us, we might have said, well, then shift it over a little bit. But it's already been shifted. So, and there's the conundrum, you look at the elevation, you look at the facade, and it's worked out. And then you wonder, well, if it shifts over, how's that going to affect everything? As far as bearing walls, as far as structural, as far as massing. So, that, for what it's worth, that's what made me comfortable was that setback.
I'm trying to remember, and there's not, unfortunately, the diagram, if the houses have the equal drop as they go down the hill, or if the one to the east is a little bit lower.
They look pretty similar.
They look pretty similar, right? Yeah. So, on one just note, and I'm sorry, I missed Mr. Gregos' comment about the stone. We have looked at other projects similar to this and encouraged them to use natural stone as opposed to manufactured.
The product is a natural.
Oh, sorry, we can't.
Is that?
Sorry. That's something that we can ask him about.
Right, and that was not on the material board. Yeah, that's what I remember him mentioning, and I didn't hear what his comment was, but I would certainly encourage that.
Okay, I'm sure he would be open to considering that at least. So, but that was my concern. But we can make a motion and we can.
Yeah, and I don't know quite how to address that.
Yeah. So, anyone have a motion we can consider?
I want to ask a question. Most of the materials are actually on the board, but they're not on the drawings themselves.
To Mr. Gergos, or
just
in
to
general
staff,
to us?
or how are we going to handle that? Because the drawings don't have any notes on call-outs.
That does happen at times. We would recommend that for either all the items or the important items, we can include them in the conditions so that it makes it easier for staff to administer.
Okay. And so we need to make a record of the stone, that it will be natural stone, correct?
Natural stone veneer, and that the windows are
So that these are...
fiberglass wood clad.
Right, that's what it says here, right?
And siding, is the siding called out there?
Siding is not called out.
Hardy plank siding.
Hardy planks, okay, so we're recording all that?
So we'll include that
And then the
in the
roof is shingle.
conditions.
Now, the roof, I think, I'm not sure what the GAF, there's many different thicknesses. They do have a heavy-duty one, so I would, because it's it's sort of a Craftsman style, you want that roof to have some thickness. You don't want it to be the really thin shingle. So I would get the shingles that has the most pronounced profile. Let's put it that way. That way it looks more like a nice heavy shingle from those days. Okay. I'd like to move to approve the project with the comments made and also the comments on materials and so on.
Could I also amend your motion to include the placement of the air conditioning units?
Yes, tell me where you want to put it.
Where they're not next to the neighbors' houses.
Okay. So you don't want it on between the properties, between the two?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's the garage for their house, but it is right against the neighbor's house.
Okay.
I would be sensitive, and I'll defer back to staff how they handle that sensitivity.
Well, there's a code because the code usually doesn't allow them
in that setback.
Unless they're supposed to be screened and they're supposed to have some kind of a sound barrier of some
Right.
sort.
Well, there may not be enough
Sometimes
space
doesn't
on that
happen.
side
So
either.
I would echo that. I think if we put it on the notes that consideration should be given to where the air conditioning units go, and that should be in a place where it does not disturb the neighbors. I think that would be good for the record.
I can second.
All right.
So the motion to approve with condition was made by Mr. Aliano, and Mr. Ellis seconded. Would you like me to go over the condition or considerations, or shall I just
You know what?
roll call?
I'd be happy to hear them.
You would? I'm not sure whether what Mr. Yu said was a consideration, or if possible, try to center the upper floor.
No, I don't think it's anything.
No.
You don't want that? Okay. Stone should...
Rambling, that's what
Okay. Stone should be natural and hardy board should be used for siding. Choose the shingle type of roof with most pronounced profile, and place the air conditioning away from the neighboring property. So this is roll call. Board Member Aliano.
And that the fiberglass windows shall be used. I think Jaleh stated shingles with the most pronounced profile, and I would just like to revise natural stone veneer should be used,
And also the siding.
and the siding should be hardy plank.
This is the roll call. Board Member Aliano.
Actually, before I say yes, the windows are going to get painted, right, because they're fiberglass, correct? Okay, very good. Yes.
Board Member Ellis.
Yes.
Board Member Insua is absent. Board Member Simonian.
Yes.
Chairman Yu.
Can I abstain?
Okay.
You're the chairman. You can do whatever you want.
I'm not.
So the motion passes by 3-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I think that's the last item.
Well, you'd like to
Well, we
think it
have one
is,
more.
but we have one more.
Same
And it's next project, 1 PDR 2009-009-A 1204 East Maple Street. And Mr. Cullen.
That's yours.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes,
Find out. We have a hearing going on.
Staff can help you.
Could you help him real quick? Mister? He stepped up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, presented before you as mentioned, case 1-PDR 2009-009A, located at 1204 East Maple Street. This is the first time submittal for final review. The applicant in this case is proposing to remodel an existing two-story single-family dwelling while adding 266 square feet to the existing first floor, 401 square feet to the existing second floor. The total floor area for the project will be 2,323 square feet. I'll quickly go through the plans that I have, then I'll continue my presentation. We have a site plan presented for you. The applicant is proposing at the front, here is Maple, a balcony which will be facing the street, an expansion of the existing kitchen by approximately 8 square feet, The applicant is also proposing a new covered porch. The majority of the rest of the addition is at the back of the house, both first and second floor. I have a roof plan, colored elevations, as well as existing and proposed floor plans, perspective, and like the photos are going around of the existing house as well as the neighborhood. I also have a neighborhood map of the 500-foot radius. In more detail, project is zoned R1. It's located in Floor Area District 2. Subject site is located north and west of the Adams Hill neighborhood and is not part of a specific neighborhood identified in the single-family neighborhood analysis and neighborhood guidelines. The applicant has stated that the existing house would be considered Spanish colonial revival.
Miscellaneous.
Yeah, a mutt.
Spanish colonial mutt?
I don't know. SCR.
As it relates to site planning, the site plan will not be significantly altered. Site planning that's proposed, landscaping and parking appear consistent with the majority of the homes in the neighborhood. The roof structure that crosses over the driveway, which doesn't show on the plans, it's a metal structure, should be removed, and staff has included that as a condition of approval that was done without permits. Additionally, the recreation room, which is shown as being removed, staff is also recommending that be a condition of approval, that room be removed and the rear yard be covered with landscaping. As it relates to mass and scale, the addition is broken up around the perimeter of the house, and as a result, proposal appears to be appropriate in terms of mass and scale to the project and the neighborhood. As it relates to building design and detailing, I'm just quickly going through. Proposed materials, the house include fiberglass windows, stucco, clay barrel tile roofing. Fiberglass windows are being proposed to replace the existing windows on the side and rear of the house, with wood trim at the bottom of the windows, while the windows at the front of the house will be maintained, and those are wood windows. And the windows that are being replaced, new ones, will be recessed from the wall. The proposed overall texture materials of the proposal appear consistent with the Spanish colonial for the applicant. The quality and design of the proposal is appropriate for the neighborhood, and staff is recommending that the roof over the new balcony at the front, which is this portion here and shown on the elevations here. Staff is recommending that it be a flat roof, either a wood trellis or a material that's consistent with the Spanish style. There's 5 draft conditions the staff has included with the report. If you'd like me to read through those, I can. If you have any questions, staff is available for questions, and staff is recommending approval of the project based off the conditions as listed.
Do we have any questions for staff?
No. Just one question I had. You mentioned that the existing windows were a different type than what was proposed? Or are they the same?
The ones that are proposed are wood for the front, and the rest would be fiberglass wood clad.
I see. To match the existing?
Existing, I believe, is wood and aluminum.
I see, okay.
One more thing the staff would like to know. I received a phone call today from one of the neighbors, a gentleman named Bill, who is in opposition to the project based off of the square footage of it and the potential of the project to impact the on-street parking. I told him I would mention his concern.
Okay. Be noted. Thank you. The first card, Mike Rose, if you... Name and address, please.
Mike Ergus, 3501 of Buena Vista, 91208. The owner of the property bought it about maybe 4 or 5 months ago from now. So all of the sort of weekend warrior metal additions that have been done. He also would like to get rid of those, in addition to the security bars and whatnot in front. That wasn't something that they had added out of their own aesthetic style. I do have something I like to do. I believe that 2 stories can be beautiful buildings, and there's many great examples of 2 stories in Glendale. And my feeling is that if it's going to be a 2-story, try to make it feel like it had been a 2-story. And I think when I first went out and saw the house, it really just seems so detached, the second floor and the first floor in front. I just think it seems like 2 different buildings. And I think sometimes people put the second story at the back thinking that you're somehow minimizing it, and I think it just is such a detriment to the style. I think it just goes contrary so much. So without trying to balloon the project and going out over the front, there's a vaulted ceiling in the living room, so you really couldn't go over the living room, which is the room on the right-hand side with the taller window. I wanted to bring some element out to the front, so at least you're starting to grab that lower section. And it's very traditional within the style to have a front porch like that on the second floor. I think you guys have probably seen them around town. Very traditional to have that. I really would like it to be a tile roof. It has wood supports. They would be substantial, even 8x8, with a very simple corbel detail at the top, very, very minimal. Again, sort of keeping within the style. And so my preference would really be to keep it as a tile roof, acknowledging the condition in the staff report. If the board feels that it's important that it lighten, I think it would be unfortunate, because I don't think you really, on that style building, if it's trying to, again, be like it was done in the 30s or 40s, it really wouldn't have had a trellis in front of the second floor. So I hope that wouldn't be the case for the board. The other thing was the addition is a fairly minimal addition. The reason we're able to do what we can is that we are removing the rec room, so that would definitely be gone. And it is definitely the intent of the owner to landscape the back and get that area back for a play area. They have a baby on the way, and I'm sure they would want to develop it that way. As said, we want to keep the wood windows on the front, just because it would be hard to mimic that living room window cost-wise. So we'll be maintaining the wood windows on the front, and then just for cost reasons, we were going to go to fiberglass. And I was actually going to broach the subject if we could go vinyl on the other 3, but I'll leave that for the board to decide if we could. There's a lot of apartments in the area, and I think it would be sensitive to the scale of the area that the vinyl, I think, would be enough to be appropriate. So I would only ask a board of that possibility.
Vinyl or fiberglass? Vinyl?
I had said fiberglass in the plan, and I'm just sort of bringing it up now, is tossing it out there, see if anybody salutes. So if it's a possibility. And then the other item was that there's a small addition we're doing on the front and adding the porch roof. Again, just because that sort of storybook style where you'd have a 5-foot wall in front is nice, but makes that front area unusable in the kitchen. So that's the reason for the addition of the gable roof in front. All the materials match the existing. The only new material would be the wood for the porch structures over in the front and around the back. And again, it would be a very heavy timber within the style, very simple details to it. If you have any questions.
Do we have any questions?
I got a couple of questions. There's an existing vent on the driveway side. Are you reconsidering doing air conditioning and heating? Is that going to be handled?
Oh, absolutely.
That
would all be upgraded. Yeah.
That gets upgraded?
Yeah, it's had a series of very odd additions to it.
Right, yeah.
The idea is to kind of bring it together.
Okay. And a consideration of where you might put that exterior air conditioning stuff?
Yeah, to answer the question, the code is very clear that they really don't want it in the side yard setback. So in the case of the previous project or this one, it's very hard to make it work in a side yard, especially on this one. It would most likely be towards the rear.
Okay.
Same with the previous project.
Did I have another note? No, I think I'm okay. Thank you, sir.
Question. The chimney is being extended further up, correct?
Right, yeah.
And it's structurally the way there's not going to be any bracing or anything like that. It's going to be just a vertical.
Right. It's you can until we actually get into it, you'll determine whether it has rebar or not, which determines how you do the extension. It's possible of the age of it, there is some rebar in it, which lets you then do a bond beam at the plate, and then you can go up, build on the bond beam. If there's no rebar, you have to take it down to the firebox.
Right, but
and then do the bond.
there won't be any bracing to the roof.
No, the intent is not to. No.
I mean, would you consider just taking it out and putting a box in with a,
I think I'd want to leave open the option that it's still a chimney. With a unit with a flue, but it's a stuccoed box, so it looks like a chimney, but not a masonry. Right. It will be open.
At the top of the chimney, you don't think that it will need to go above the eave of the adjacent two-story, right?
No, it's more than 10 feet past.
Okay.
And actually, there's a question as to whether it has to be extended. So
Yeah, because on your drawings, it doesn't look like it's extended in both images, on the west elevation and the north.
You might have an
Yeah.
issue with that window, though.
that's actually, because the reason I was saying that, I don't think actually, most likely we won't need to, because that actually is all existing condition. That portion of the
Right.
second floor is
But
existing.
aren't you adding a window, or is it already there?
That's already there.
A window facing the street?
And you actually can have windows on the side because that's within 3 feet and that's existing wall.
So it's okay to do
Yeah.
that? All right.
Actually, I think that
There's
is a
no
new
new
window.
Huh?
That's
the one
an
you're
existing
talking
window.
about. I think that's a new window.
Well, I was talking about this window here.
The window to the right,
Yeah, I
that's
think
an
that's a
existing
new-
window.
That was
That's
the
an
existing
existing
window.
Really? I don't remember
And
seeing
that won't interfere with the chimney?
No, it's pre-existing condition. There's no change to that.
Just don't open your window when there's a fire in the fireplace.
Yeah. You'll know quickly if there's a fire.
Any more questions? We're okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. One other card. We have Roger Leboy. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Roger Leboy, 711 Wing Street. I had a couple of things that I wanted to say. My neighbor, which is at 1220 East Maple, his house is right next to my house, but my house is on Wing Street. His is facing Maple. After my neighbor bought his house, he quickly remodeled the garage and turned it into living spaces. And he's using that remodeled garage as a boarding house right now.
Have you contacted Neighborhood Services, 548-3300?
No, I didn't have any problem with it.
Well, that's against the code, so I would suggest if you know that you make that call.
What address was it again, sir?
I did.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? All right.
Well, the only problem I had was there's a lot of traffic, coming in and out of the house, and oftentimes at night.
Right.
He's remodeled the back patio to where it's very nice, and he's got a gazebo out there, and people congregate and talk out, his tenants congregate and talk out there late into the evening, and which is, their property faces our bedroom, and it's kind of disturbing. Other than that, I don't really have anything against my neighbor. We get along fine. What I'm afraid here, this house wants to double in size, and it's only like 3 or 4 houses down the street, down Maple. From 1220, my neighbor, this is 1204. It's, 3 houses down, 4 houses down?
4.
I'm afraid if this house is allowed to double in size, my neighbor will be wanting to double in size. And next thing, I'll have a hotel next to my house instead of a small boarding house being run out of a garage. That's my concern. Not only that, I disagree with this contractor here. He says this design is pretty. If you look at the picture, it's pretty. But this house is already the largest house on the street. It's the biggest house in the area. It has a second story, and this is basically going to double the size of it, which I think it will overpower the neighborhood. The contractor says it will complement the neighborhood. I think it will overpower the neighborhood. So I'm against this. I don't think it's good for the area that I live in. And like I say, if this house is allowed to double in size, doesn't that mean everyone else will be able to double in size also? And, there's parking problems, there's, people problems, more people moving in, so on and so forth. So I'm very concerned about this big project. I think it will dwarf most of the houses in the area, and I think it's too much. If the people that bought the house, if they needed a bigger house, they should have bought a bigger house. I mean, why move into an area and then overnight double the size of your property? I don't think it's a good thing. I would vote no. What I have to say.
Do we have any questions?
Thank you for waiting, too, to make a comment.
Thank you.
I'm concerned. That's why I waited.
No, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Let's close the session. Well, you already went first. Everyone's already gone. Back to you.
There we
Art.
go by alphabet.
I don't mind going. Does the architect want to have a rebuttal or no?
A rebuttal?
I don't think you need to do it.
He's waiving his right to a rebuttal.
I'm waiving our rights to develop.
I rebut that rebuttal.
No, I had a question before we take the
go
call.
ahead.
Would you mind coming up? I wanted to ask you a couple of questions.
If you can rebut.
It's not clear here.
Name for the record.
Name and address.
Mike Garrigus, 35.
The way that the stair is drawn, it's not, I'm assuming the stair is inside here.
Stair is underneath, yeah.
But all this is not there, right? Is that a mistake in the drafting?
You're actually going under the wall at that point. You're into the first floor. You don't need the full dimension. You don't need the wall there because you're already below it.
So, but you coming out here, you're getting in here to get to the stair.
Right. And as you come down the stair,
You have to be at the mic.
Actually, why don't you bring them up to here?
Why don't we
Come
go
on,
here?
let's do this. Let's all get involved.
You want to do it the real way, huh?
I like to be all involved. Where's that stick?
we had a laser pointer.
We have a stick here, right? Give him the stick
need a
there,
laser
Mr. Aliano. That's right. Don't ever give the
We call
applicant
them
a
back
stick.
in technology.
Right. Mr. Hirogoki last week had a laser pointer, which was really great. Wow. I got to bring one.
Hard to see on TV, probably.
Yeah.
All right.
If you look, the stair starts here. The wall is actually back here. So as you're heading up the stair, you're actually you don't need the head height yet. So the wall only starts at the point where you need head height, if that answers your question.
Okay, but
It's only starting when you need head height.
Hey, there you go.
There we go. Wow, where'd that come from? That's nice.
Oh, my God.
yeah, see, this is very clear, but on the drawing that we have, the stair is drawn out of.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
That's why I was looking at the drawing, the package.
Yeah, that's fine. For some reason, it doesn't reproduce in that.
No, it's completely, look, it's floating in air.
That's it, once it's
Okay.
So it's just you see how the
It's a
drawing,
library part that's
it
not.
shows the stair outside the building. So
Yeah, that's a layer issue.
No, it's a library part from the wrong library.
Thank you.
all right.
What you're saying is the drawings that we're getting at home are not the ones that we're seeing here on the wall.
Well,
Because,
obviously it doesn't have that drawing.
yeah, right. The stairs are going a different way on
It's an
that one.
errant library part that was loaded incorrectly. If anybody does CAD.
Double check everything.
And for the record, Ian's dad did a great job. So for Ian's dad.
What happened?
Ian's dad. I had to put Ian in there somehow. So. And Loie. Zoe, sorry, not Loie. We good?
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Sewell.
My thoughts on this project are as follows. When I look at the existing picture of this house, it seems run down. It is run down. There's a whole bunch of additions that have occurred on it in the rear, in the front, as far as... So it is not an appealing house to begin with. I really don't see any kind of a, historical significance to it at all. I don't see any kind of remnants of a historical importance. And so I look at this as one of those typical, homes that has evolved over many, many, many years and some decades, and different owners have done different things to it, and maybe the neighborhood has evolved over time, and so those security bars are no longer necessary. So what I am seeing in front of me is a design of a house that is a big improvement over what is there right now. I'm also looking at the zoning of the property, and across the street is multifamily zoned. It's zoned R 3,000 somethings. 3050, R 3050. So it is multi-zoned across the street, but it is R1 on this side, on the south side of the street, which is where this property is. And so anytime you have this sort of a transition in density from more dense to less dense, there's always going to be an eclectic type of architecture, as you might say. There's some that are higher in density, some are lower, and these kind of streets tend to have many different types of designs, and I think this is one of those cases as well. And so we can't really draw upon the surrounding context to search for design ideas or precedents, and so the architect, I think, has taken what is there, which is a modest house, and is proposing to do a modest addition. So when I judge the massing and the layout of it, it seems to make sense. I don't really have a particular issue one way or another with the massing or the bulk of it. And as far as the overall layout of the site, it is, expanding into the southern part of the site. And even that is somewhat minuscule because in elevation it is creating a deck, but it is to the rear of the house. So in return, staff has suggested that they demolish the existing non-conforming use to the back or non-conforming building.
That's correct.
And so some density is being taken away, some bulk is being taken away from the rear that's existing right now. And so us pushing back into the site is not going to affect the property owner to the south as much because they're actually getting rid of something that's right adjacent to that property. And so that, coupled with some of the conditions that I guess staff is recommending, which is getting rid of the metal overhang, which is a good idea, the recreation room in the rear to be demolished that we just talked about, or security bars. So I guess I'm in conformance with everything, and I don't really have one opinion one way or another about item number 3, about the second floor balcony. I think if there was a trellis, it certainly would change the appearance of the design, and if not, it's I don't think that crucial towards my decision. So all in all, I think it's an improvement from what's there, and so I could support the project. If staff feels very strongly about that, then and others do as well, I could support that as well.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll jump in. I was looking, and it is kind of a weird little one-block area that is R1, and everything around it's R30-50. And I just realized when I went out this afternoon and looked at the properties, across the street it seems like they're all single families, yet it's zoned R30-50. So that side of the street, to the north side of Maple, hasn't yet been developed. I'm sure it will at some point. I'm sorry? An aside.
Open the
Thank you.
floodgates.
The house is in dire need of renovation, and I looked at it. I think Mr. Gregos has done a pretty nice job. The size and the massing that the neighbor commented on was something I looked at, and I thought about that looking at it. I realized it's already a two-story house. It's already a poorly laid out or designed two-story house with a kind of a weird addition stacked on it. And I think he is doing a nice job bringing it back to life. I can support actually all of the staff's, and I had a couple of things. Some of them said should. I think they should read shall. Number 2 and number 3. Mr. Gregos kind of pitched the roof line, and I didn't see it that much until after you started talking about it. It's always a danger to point these things out, because then when I started looking at it, to make it work for me, you need to relay the whole roof line, and so that you don't have that little piece of roof added to it. That's what takes it away, especially on the sides. I mean, then it really started jumping out at me. I know you don't want to put the money in doing that unless you want to consider that. I would support staff's choice to change it as opposed to have it just be tacked on. Because that was the one point, now that I'm looking at it, everything else is pretty well integrated. That's kind of tacked on, especially when you start looking at the perspective and at the I'll jump up and tell you. I mean, it's a little piece of roof tacked onto the top of it. If you see it here, you see it here on the side, you see it a little bit in the perspective. I mean, the real way is to make that roof all one piece, but obviously that's much more expensive, and I wouldn't, certainly wouldn't consider it unless they're dying to consider that. It's about a 600 square foot addition, I think, is what if I did my math correctly. I don't know if it is the biggest house in the neighborhood, as the gentleman said, but the concern of the second stories are a problem. I think, though, when you go back to it, across the street, they're going to be apartment buildings. They're not going to be two-story houses, single-family dwellings. So I think with the staff's suggestions, and I could support it.
Thank you. Mr. Giuliano.
Yes, I don't want to reiterate. I think I agree with the comments, and I like what you've done, with respect to the massing, how you consolidated the whole house, because, all these new pieces that you've added kind of bind it all together and make it more whole. So I like what you've done. I don't think it would be the type of house that would feel massive. It's very nicely done. I do have a dilemma with the roof in the front as well. Before I say that, actually, I should say I like the idea of having something there, because I think right now it looks kind of naked, especially, you changed the pitch of that front piece. You made it a gable. That helps a lot. But I like the idea of adding that space there. If there's a way to make that connection to the existing roof a little bit, how should I say it?
Contiguous?
Well, yeah, it looks, it looks like it is tacked on, and it's hard to find examples where, the more historical versions of this, you would see something like that. Usually, you would take the roof and take that pitch and bring it down. You don't fold it too much. So a trellis, I'm not sure it's also the solution either, because then the trellis has to be tacked onto the eave, which is not a good solution either. So I'm going to sort of go with this, but I think you should really consider that and maybe discuss it with staff to see how you can resolve that. But I think it's maybe a question of detailing as well, and also what do you see when you look from underneath, because you're going to be looking at this from the street, and you're going to see the eave of the old building with this other one. All of that kind of has to come together. And, I wonder whether, the thing is, you don't want to change the pitch of the roof, of all the roofs, because they're all kind of the same. But if you use the existing pitch, that eave of the new addition is going to be too low. So it's kind of a weird, but I'm going to leave it up to you and staff to see if you can come up with a way to refine that a little bit better. But I agree with what you've done. I think I do want to make sure that we put in a condition that chimney does not go higher than the adjacent second-story eave. And if it does, I think it should be looked at, because we don't want this thing dangling up in the air. All right, that's it.
Thank you.
I will support the project. And I like the comments that are made by staff.
Yeah, they were good.
Is there a material board? Was there a material board? Did you guys?
I didn't take it.
Everything matches existing?
Yeah. And then the windows you were going to do, I think you shouldn't go with vinyl. I think it would be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Just do fiberglass.
That's a non-start here,
they're
too.
not as cheap as vinyl, but they're not as expensive as wood. So I would just go with a fiberglass with a profile that matches as much as possible the wood ones, and paint everything the same color, and everything will be great. No vinyl. Okay.
I think a lot of great comments have been said already. I really like this project. I think it's a good way of taking a building that's sort of, like everyone said, it's a mismatched, ad hoc, whatever design that they did. But I like the moves that you made. I like the balancing of one side of the other instead of having this big slope coming down. I think that was very well done. When I first went out to the second story, it kind of just pops up out of nowhere, and there's not really tied into anything. I think the porch is a good idea of tying that in. I'm actually okay with the roof as it is. I think the side looks a little weird, but I think you'll figure out a good detail, I think, and so could leave it at that. And just to clarify, yeah, you're right. I think they're not doubling the house as is. It's actually 667 square feet to a 1,700 square foot house, which is basically adding a third more than existing. So we want to get that out there, that I don't want them to get the wrong idea that they're doubling this house and making a huge mansion out of it. That plus the parking issue, I think we need to make a clear distinction of somebody converting a garage and bringing more people onto this neighborhood. You know, we can't really compare that to somebody that's trying to do it legally and trying to add to their house and try to do that. So we can't, I'm sorry, we can't communicate back and forth, but, you know, that there's a sort of a legal way and an illegal way of doing it. And so to put that in one basket to say that everything's the same, I think that's a disservice to the people that are actually trying to do it the right way. So I want to be clear about that. I like the design. I think you've made a lot of good choices on it, and I'm ready to support it as it is. So we have a motion.
Yes, I'd like to move for approval, and I want...
Before you do that, perhaps Mr. Collin would like to read back the conditions.
Yes.
The first condition,
I wish we did that part.
let me ask this first. Did we want to go with the conditions that were listed by staff
I can support the conditions listed by staff.
as
With
written?
number 2, though, I think that's a touchy one, because I think you need to...
No, or number 3.
Number 3 is the trellis, yeah.
Yeah.
That one I think should be worked out, and I was going to make a motion...
I've actually revised that.
Okay, but my
Any way to
motion
say
was
that?
going to include that before, I'll move to approve, but I want, like the applicant, to submit a wall section of that area and really work out the detailing, because I'm mostly concerned not about how it folds in the roof, but what you're looking at from underneath when you're walking down the street, because you'll see the eave and this thing on top. And that's...
Continue the heavy timber, basically, the look of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you'll work it out. I'm just saying you should probably provide a detail to staff so they can look at it. And you know what I'm talking about. You want some continuity from below so it doesn't look like you're looking at an eave and a roof, you know?
Actually, one last thing. I noticed on the picture, it looks like on the back side of that second story, it's an asphalt shingle with just tile around it. That's going to be all tile roof, right?
No, I think it's just
Looks
a
like an
shortcut
asphalt
in
shingle.
drafting.
No, I mean this part here. Looks like an asphalt shingle with just tile surrounding it.
That all gets rebuilt.
Okay,
That's where
so
the
that's going to be
addition,
new.
the
Okay,
cabin's on the back.
so we're going to be, okay.
What I have is condition number 1 that was listed in the staff report stays. Condition number 2, the should is changing to a shall.
Shall be removed, yeah.
Condition number 3 is going to be modified, and I'll read that off in a second. Condition number 4 and 5 stay as is. Is that correct so far?
Yep.
Right.
Okay. From
Number
there,
3 was the only one that I wanted to modify. which
right,
was-
and I'll get that one in a second and see if you agree. The next one I have, and that I heard mentioned, but I thought I'd take it a step further, is that the air condition should be located away from the neighbor's property. Is that something the board wants to consider?
Wasn't that for the other case?
No, it was for the, I asked the question, where does it go? Where does it go? Is it,
That should be always a consideration.
It
you
is,
know.
it is.
Well, no, it should be a...
What was the question?
where is the mechanical, the AC located?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and if it's located in a manner that's, that's considerate, it's considerate of the neighbors. Because I don't have a plot plan that shows anything about where the neighbors' houses are. Actually, I take that back.
Well, I mean, it's governed by setback
setback
issues, so it
codes,
can't be
right.
in the setback unless it's
Right.
it's got its own quadrant
Right.
thing. So,
And-
I don't know. I guess
So I would make that a consideration as opposed to a condition. I mean,
Well, you
but-
can make it, I think I'll support it, because I think they should show it on the site plan where they intend to do it, put it, and that way it gets recorded, because what happens in the process is, it gets missed.
Right.
Sometimes it can be put in the setback, nobody picks it up, and then all of a sudden, you have an air conditioning unit in the setback,
Right.
so...
Typically, we would say something like, work with staff to locate the HVAC, staff enclosure, and any other equipment.
I wait so that it doesn't disturb the neighbors, okay.
Okay. So
I
see
like
it as
that.
a given then. Okay.
All right, so the motion,
He's going to read 3,
I'm
right?
sorry, I've got 2 more. The way I worded it is resolve the roof element over the second floor, balcony at the front, provide a wall section, and details underneath the eave.
ensure that the eave and the new roof is, what's the word?
Natural transition?
Yeah, it's a condition, sort of continuous and not abrupt.
There is a word in the English
There is a
language that
word.
fits that. I'm missing
think
it
of
too
it.
now, right? It's not contiguous, it's harmonious. Harmonious. I don't know.
Yeah.
The last one I have is that the chimney shall not extend above the second story eave. Is that correct?
Second story adjacent eve, right?
Adjacent, second
Adjacent.
story adjacent eve.
Adjacent to the chimney?
Right.
Great, I'll second your motion.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This will be roll call. Mr. Aliano?
Oh, one more thing. I just wanted to clarify that the windows at the front, the wood windows shall remain, fiberglass windows shall be used, and vinyl.
Correct. Big one.
Vinyl is
Prohibited.
shall not be used.
Arrivederci. Right. Sorry. The vinyl industry doesn't like me very much.
No, they probably hate us.
Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Chairman Yu?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries of approval on a 4-0 vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Are there any other notes?
There are no other items on the agenda.
I move we adjourn.
And there are no minutes, so
Right.
motion to adjourn at 7:00.